All set. Good evening. The Charter Township of Plymouth Board of Trustees meeting for Tuesday, November 13th, 2018 will come to order. Mr. Clerk, please take the roll.
Trustee Dorshevitz.
Here.
Clerk Forba here. Trustee Dempsey. Present. Supervisor Heisey.
Here.
Treasurer Clinton.
Here.
Trustee Kermy.
Here.
Trustee Heitman.
Here.
All present. We have a quorum.
Thank you. Tonight's Pledge of Allegiance, let's have Lieutenant Dan Kudra. Thank you. Before we approve the agenda, I just want to say that we should be broadcasting live right now on our cable channels. You know, we did have issues at our last meeting. We have consulted with some IT people, and we do have some parts on order that should hopefully solve the problem. So those parts are still on order. So if we do have issues tonight, we may have a loss of signal from time to time, so please bear with us. We're going to keep it running live as long as we can. So we will always be having a secondary loop going with a simultaneously recorded tape of the meeting that we will be running later on cable and also on the township website. Okay, item C is approval of tonight's agenda.
Mr. Supervisor.
Mr. Clerk.
I move for the approval of the Tuesday, November 13, 2018 agenda.
Thank you. Motion is made by Clerk Vorba. Is there a second? Second by Trustee Heitman. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Next up is item D, approval of the consent agenda. Comments or questions by the board?
Who reviewed the bills?
I did.
Okay, I'll have some additional questions once you're done.
Okay, there you go. I had a couple of observations on the bills this month. Apparently the firemen are still going to Napa. Quite a bit of money on windshield washer and antifreeze. Last month it was, well, because the other place didn't have it, and I'm pretty sure the Plymouth Township place will have windshield washer and antifreeze. The other thing is auto and truck bill from our DPW department. We removed pounds, in quotes, pounds of mud and had ripped the mud flaps for $3,700. Very concerned we're off-roading our trucks. So please pass that along to the DPW to, treat these like they're their own vehicles.
If you'd like, I can have Mr. Felrath just provide a email to the board on that one.
Yeah, that'd be a good idea. Thank you.
Also, Mr. Supervisor, we have some amendments to the meetings for the Tuesday, October 23rd that was submitted by Trustee Dempsey, and they will be added to the official minutes.
Okay, Mr. Kermy.
My question was about the Napa versus AutoZone. And looking at some of these other window washing, we do it twice a year and it's $1,800. Is that worth the expense to do twice a year? Think about it. Most people don't even wash their house windows once a year, probably ever. There was a thing in here about sand. What is the sand for? That's like $1,800 worth of sand.
What page are you on?
Sand.
What page? Hold on. I have it highlighted.
Is that in DPW?
Probably is. It's
Really? It's
It is?
for the golf course?
It looked like it was DPW, but let me find it. Hold on.
Oh, okay.
Makes more sense.
One moment. Ellsworth Industries, sand. $1,126.
Okay, I'll check.
It's probably sand to put on the sidewalks or something in the park.
Didn't jump out at me, so yeah, we
No,
can
no, I'm
ask.
thinking backfill in a.
Oh, for
in
an
a,
excavation?
In a
Trenching?
trenching
Yeah.
operation.
Yeah, maybe.
That makes more sense.
I'll check with Pat.
Sounds
All
like
right.
it makes sense.
Yeah. Okay. Anything else? All right, I'm looking for a motion to approve item D, approval of consent agenda.
Mr. Supervisor,
Mr. Heitman.
I move we approve the consent agenda.
Motion's made by trustee Heitman. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by clerk Vorga. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Next up, before public comments, Mr. Vorga, you got a comment?
Thank you, Mr. Supervisor and trustees. As you know, we just had a general election. This was, in fact, one of the largest turnouts for a gubernatorial election, and probably in the history of Michigan in a long time. We had a lot of wonderful volunteers who came forward and worked countless hours. Matter of fact, on some of our counting boards, they were working like 24 hours in order to finish counting all the absentee ballots. Speaking of absentee ballots, we received more absentee ballots than the last presidential election. And not only did we receive requests for more ballots, we had a 97% return. And that is just, it's awesome that people are doing that, but of course, it created a lot of extra work. So I wanted to announce also that on December the 4th, we plan on having our post-general election election commission meeting so that we can have the public come in and input their experiences and talk about all the issues that went on in the election and make suggestions for the changes that we know are going to be coming as a lot of the election law has changed in this election, changes to the Constitution. So there's going to be a need for a complete rework of how we do some of the election process. There'll be new training, new promulgated rules that will be coming down. So that's something that we're going to have to plan for as a commission in the future. And of course, that is going to require probably more outlay of money for training, personnel, and equipment.
As part of that, Jerry, I'd also like to thank the Township of Northville for, they had the same equipment that we had that they had a huge amount of problems with as well. They volunteered to send some people over, and they were able to help us out. Unfortunately, they only have one precinct, and we have 12, but it worked out real well, and it was very nice of them to send people over.
Yes, and also Wayne County did come forward and offer their help by providing a high-speed reader for the absentee ballots. Matter of fact, they did this, and the Dominion Company, which is the manufacturer of the equipment, had to do it in Livonia, Grosse Pointe, other communities had such large volumes of absentee ballots that it took a Herculean effort to do that. So the equipment that we normally use just couldn't handle the volume, and so they brought in high-speed readers for a number of communities throughout Wayne County, and I do appreciate their assistance also.
So this meeting on the 4th, that's a public meeting?
That is, it will be posted, and it's a public meeting. We do encourage the people to come. There's myself, Trustee Dempsey, Trustee Heitman, and we do encourage the public to come because we love to have input, being a transparent group, and we'd love to have input for people who have had either issues or suggestions. I received a good suggestion on Election Day from a person who was a person that worked in strategies and stuff. So I'm going to take that under consideration too. So we like your suggestions.
So just so I show up at the right time, it'll be at 7 p.m.?
It's 7 p.m. on the 4th, right here at beautiful Township Hall.
And the public and poll workers and whomever?
Who are going to be invited. And I'm going to extend also an invitation to the manufacturer of the new voting equipment. The new equipment was all new, and this is mandated. We don't get to select the equipment that's selected by Wayne County, and so we have to kind of deal with what we have. But the equipment is slower than the past equipment, so that did add to some of the issues.
Jerry, will you have a write-up of things gone wrong and like we talked about?
Oh, absolutely. Whenever you have this type of critique and meeting, you want to have address any and all issues, along with receiving suggestions from the public. And also a lot of this is educating the public on the processes that we have to go through and the things that they can do to help us in the process. So again, I want to thank all the volunteers who worked countless hours. Remember, there's a lot of hours go into an election prior to the election day. We were putting in 14, 15, 16-hour days for several weeks, and it just takes that kind of planning and processing of ballots. And of course, you know, with the new law of no reason AV voting, the almost 7,000 ballots we had this time will probably increase to 10 or 12. So be ready.
Okay, thank you. Next up is public comments and questions, limited to 3 minutes. This is not your only opportunity of the evening to comment on agenda items. There's also going to be another opportunity at the end of the meeting. And we also encourage relevant questions on individual agenda items as well. So at this time, are there any public comments and questions under item E? Yes, sir. And please state your name for the record. What's he using?
Dale Lighting, 45546 Woodley Way. I know there's going to be a discussion regarding a couple of golf alternatives tonight, and I'd just like to remind the board that there's another alternative that will not be presented except maybe by me, and that is the fact that we could possibly have a full-on park at this location instead of golf. I know that there's some people in here that might be a little shocked to hear that, but that is an alternative. I was happy to see in the latest proposal for the 9-hole course that there were soccer fields or athletic fields in there. I think that's been a great need for the community for a very long time, and I'm very thrilled to see that there. Also very happy to see the dog park that was included, although it's a little bit small. The one in Northville that I go to is about 4 acres. The 1-acre park that was included would not be quite adequate for what I believe we need in the township. I'm also happy to see all the trails. The trails are very important, obviously, so you can get through the property and take a look at all of the natural streams and trees and swamps and, you know, all the nature that is there to be had. Regarding all the metrics that you look at, whether it's the investment cost to get the golf course up to where it needs to be so it's competitive, or the ongoing operating cost, golf is a very tough proposition right now. And I don't think it's right that the taxpayers should foot the bill for the losses. We've been paying the difference for a long time. The alternative, and this is really the key point, in my mind, the alternative to having a full-on park in this location is enormous. I mean, to the community. We could have all the athletic fields we need. We could have a dog park, and we could have a canvas that could be added to in the future. There's all kinds of ideas that were in the proposal. A lot of those ideas are really good. I think a lot of them have merit. So I would encourage the board to take serious consideration of that concept. Also, I would like to remind the board that roughly 3/4 of the people who use the golf course currently are from outside our zip code. So do we want to continue to pay for other people to come into our community and use a golf course? It just doesn't make sense to me. And with that, I just want to reiterate, regardless of the metric you look at, I think that the golf course in this location, and one of the findings in the study that was just completed is that an 18-hole course is not really feasible. There's just not enough room, and I think the golfers know that. I mean, most of the golfers know that. I've played there before. I have a lot of friends who just will not play there because it's too tight. Play is way too slow because people are looking for their balls in the weeds, and it's just not a good location for golf. We have an opportunity here. We have a crossroads that we can choose a different path, and I would like to see the board really give this serious consideration.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you. Anyone else? Okay. Let's move on to new business. Item F1 is contract renewal with Wayne County Appraisers, LLC for township assessing services. We have with us tonight Mr. Shaw and Mr. Powers from WCA. If you could come to the podium here and tell us the intent behind the contract renewal and be ready to answer any questions. And I believe Cindy, I saw her briefly. We need Cindy for this as well. There she is.
Well, sure. Good evening, Supervisor Board members. My name is Aaron Powers. I am one of the managing partners of WCA Assessing. I'm also your township assessor. Along with me this evening is Doug Shaw. The contract that we have before you this evening is a renewal of both of our existing as well as the amendment to our existing contract. There's not very much that's terribly different about this one contract. It's a single contract as comparative to the two contracts or the contract and the amendment that we currently have. There's been some discussion as it relates to insurance coverages with the township attorney. I know that we're working those matters out, I believe. I think we were working diligently as of today and yesterday trying to get just some language as it relates to coverages on some things that Kevin had requested. But this is a generic renewal of the existing contract that we've had from last year and from a number of years. Be welcome to entertain any questions that anyone might have as it relates to the contract, and we can go from there.
So I have questions on page 5 and 6, so let's turn to that. At the bottom, 22B, Michigan Tax Tribunal Proceedings, so the company will report quarterly to the township on the status of tribunal appeals. Are we getting them? And if we aren't, could we get them distributed to the township board? Are you preparing them, and who are you sending them to?
So there's a couple of different things that we prepare. When you speak about Michigan Tax Tribunal Appeals, we have small claims tribunal appeals, we have full claims tribunal appeals. Normally what's occurring is that the full tribunal appeals are being updated not only to the finance department but to the auditors, because they have to annually determine what type of potential liability would exist if there is a substantial taxpayer that has an appeal. The amount of appeals that we have currently in 2018 are probably less than 10% of what we had back in 2010. Quarterly, our updates, I know that we're doing it at least at minimum to finance and to audit. I don't know if those are being distributed further than that, but we can certainly check into that.
Audit is once a year.
Correct, yeah.
Cindy, are you receiving them? All right. I just want to, let's start sending it, or let's close that hole if there is one. Maybe
Certainly, not a problem.
Because 2 weeks ago, we had a relatively large payout, a refund, so it must have been from the tax tribunal to some company. It was about $40,000, I think. I saw that it was in the bills. So we refunded to somebody, Mill Street LLC. Nobody seems to remember it. So see, that's why we want to see the data. Let's take a look at it when it comes to the reports. The next item on page 6, your hourly rates are increasing by 4% per year, and 23A, the total payment is 4%. Is that correct?
Yes.
That's double the ongoing target inflation rate. Most people in the private sector don't sign contracts that have automatic inflation riders, especially ones this big. That's huge. 4% built in?
If I could address that, our current contract is CPI plus 1, so instead of 4%, under the old contract, it'd be 3.6, so it's really only a 0.4% difference.
I know, but it's still, that's a big number. So your current contract is CPI plus 1.
That's correct.
What is the logic behind that? Tell me. help me
Our
out.
costs increase every single year, not only in addition to our costs increase, but of course, our employee health care costs have averaged increase by no less than 12% over the last 10 years. In addition to employee health care costs, that's our primary, I mean, we're a contractual basis, so, or contracting company for professionals. So our employee costs and our employee health care costs are by far the most expensive. Our employee costs, if you were to look at the amount of vacancies in the marketplace currently for assessors throughout the state of Michigan, and the amount of, I would say, change probably within the last 2 to 3 years. For example, the amount of vacancies in the assessing field right now is incredibly substantial, more so than what there ever has been. For level 4 assessors, for example, there's less than 150 in the state of Michigan. Over 50% of those are immediately eligible to retire at any time. So to put that into perspective, there's only 150 individuals in the entire state of Michigan that are certified at the specific level that Plymouth Township requires to be able to be their certifying assessor. So that kind of gives you a scope of the amount of individuals that are even certified to do the work. Then when we start talking about the amount of vacancies that are out there and the postings for jobs not only in the Metro Detroit area but beyond, has essentially provided an incredibly competitive field. And for us to be able to maintain just our current workforce as well as to attract additional new individuals to our company, we have to be competitive as well. So at minimum, we want to be able to retain the individuals that we have. That's why CPI +1 isn't doing it. CPI +2 probably isn't doing it. But it's a competitive nature and a competitive fashion that we have to be at. Our employee health care costs and our employee costs that's 90%. We have very little overhead outside of that. And to be competitive in the marketplace, that's the minimum we can do just to break even.
What does it take to become an assessor?
Well, to become a level 4 or a master assessor in the state of Michigan, one would first have to achieve 3 subsequent levels. It's equivalent to almost a master's degree is what you would anticipate. Minimum of 5 years experience at a level 3 or as a Michigan Advanced Assessing Officer. I'm relating back to the older days. In addition to that, you'd have to also become a Michigan Certified Assessing Officer, and prior to that, a Michigan Certified Assessing Technician. To become a level 4, you'd have to present narrative assessment. I'm sorry, a narrative. You have to prepare a narrative appraisal as well as do an oral examination before the State Assessors Board. The narrative appraisal is something very similar to a master's thesis. Oftentimes, it is a complete comprehensive evaluation in narrative form on a detailed, complex commercial or industrial subject building. Usually they average between 400 and 800 pages. We currently have 4 Michigan Master Assessing Officers in our organization.
Aaron, what's the level of certification of the resources that we have here on a daily basis?
On a daily basis, of course, you require a level 4 certifying assessor. Then additionally, on a daily basis, the supervisor in charge here is a Michigan Advanced Assessing Officer, and then there are also 2 Michigan Certified Assessing Officers that are here on a daily basis. Your daily representative of the individuals that are here daily also have a very extensive background of skilled individuals that they're going to rely on if it comes into a highly technical area such as a tax incentive, an OPRA, an IFT, any of those other particular issues that are a little bit more complicated in nature. If there are appeals, we have certain individuals that will handle complicated appeals of complex industrial taxpayers. We have other individuals that handle litigation for small tribunal appeals, as well as your daily allotment of appraisal personnel, I guess, that are here. So it's an extensive group. We have 40 individuals in our employ, about 40, that are of different certifications.
Any other questions from the board?
Yes. Cindy and Mark Clinton, have you baked this increase into the calculation of the administration fee that has to be put on the tax bill? Or if you haven't, you need to do a double check to make sure we're covered.
You can only charge what you can charge.
No, this is one of the charges, and you change the administration fee each year, potentially, to compensate for your costs, right?
No, you're-
Up to the limit, the 1% limit.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. We can charge up to 1% administration fee to cover the cost of assessing and treasury. If we did increase this, it would first be impacted by the summer of 2019 and then the winter of 2019 tax bills.
But I guess my point is, if we had CPI plus 1 in the carryover contract, we just need to make sure we're covered for 2018, the old contract, so that because I know you reduced it slightly in the last round.
Right.
Well, maybe you don't need to reduce it slightly. I just want to make sure you need to confirm the calculation was done, because tax bills are going out in 2 weeks.
Yeah, it's a good point. But this increase would not impact the tax bills going
No,
out now.
not this increase, but he just said there's a mere, he said CPI plus 1. CPI is going to be 2.4 plus 1, it's going to be 3.4, right? For 2018.
Let me answer the question a different way. The tax bills going out in 2 weeks do incorporate their fees.
They do?
Yes,
Okay.
yes. The tax bills going out in 2019 will, if we approve this, would have to incorporate the increase.
Okay, any other questions from the board? Any questions or comments from the public? Ms. Kushner, do you have any questions or comments?
Just a comment, our relationship, I think, with Wayne County Assessing has been tremendous. They're great resources. They, on a daily basis, they work with our department and other departments just like they're part of our organization. They work with our citizens just like they're part of our organization. They've taught me a lot over the last couple of years. When I've come to you gentlemen with questions, they've always been responsive. I think it's a very good working relationship that we have with this organization.
I agree.
have a
Could I
question.
I'm sorry,
Go ahead.
just ask, in your background, you said this fully privatizes the function. Could you explain what that meant?
Well, it's my understanding that this is the contract that no longer acknowledges any additional township involvement, either by staff or by staff.
Historically, there was a full-time township employee and a ancillary clerical position.
Yeah.
And that was a full-time position. That full-time position was reduced to a part-time position many years ago. That part-time position was ultimately, I think, transferred to building department? A different department.
I believe
other
it
than the
was
assessing department.
Brought up to DPW.
Okay, and ultimately, this contract represents our taking care of those clerical positions and roles that were previously, at least on a part-time basis, provided by township personnel.
And the vestiges of those positions, the language was carried over successively from year to year, but this contract now represents the complete privatization, independence of if you will, of WCA.
Correct.
I have a question for Kevin Bennett. There are at least one or two minor insurance issues that need to be worked out yet. And you guys are working that out.
Yeah, I did speak with the staff of Glenn Bajorek today, who was their insurance adjuster, and they did make my requested changes with respect to the additional insurance language, specifically providing the township and its board and officers and employees as being additional insureds that is included on the new certificate. There was some additional insurance language that governed multiple insurance policies, how their policy would cover first, and it would not be supplemental to, it would be primary if the board has their own insurance. And then some other insurance language, and then because there is a motor vehicle negligence exception to governmental immunity, I thought it would be prudent, even though the company in this case is going to be an independent contractor. The rules for immunity with respect to independent contractors are different than the rules for workers' comp for independent contractors. So it's possible the township could be subject to exposure if there was motor vehicle negligence on behalf of the company. So I asked their company to include all autos as being included within the policy. And the person that I spoke with today indicated that she will make that change.
Okay.
Are you confident that we're not duplicating or overlapping coverages unnecessarily to raise their costs or ours?
I can't state that there's not going to be some overlap. That's the nature of insurance. However, redundancies generally are a good thing. I just think that because there is an exception to governmental immunity based on motor vehicle negligence, that the township needs to be protected in that sense.
Okay, so our motion should, at the end, say pending final approval by the township attorney, is that?
Yes.
Okay. With that being said, assuming there's no other comments or questions, I'm looking for a motion.
Mr. Supervisor,
Mr. Clerk?
I move the adopt resolution 2018-11-1384, approving a 5-year agreement with Wayne County Appraisal LLC to provide township assessing services and authorize the supervisor and clerk to sign the same upon township attorney approval.
Thank you. Motion's made by Clerk Vorba. Is there a second? Second by Trustee Heitman. Mr. Clerk, please take the roll.
Trustee Heitman. Yes. Trustee Dempsey.
Yes.
Clerk Vorba, yes. Trustee Dorchevitz.
Yes.
Supervisor Heisey.
Yes.
Treasurer Clinton.
Yes.
Trustee Kermy.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Gentlemen, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Next up is item 2, United States of America versus Mike Mitchell. And I will say this is a matter of first impression for me. I have never been asked to do a victim impact statement before because I've never been victim of a crime of any sort, so I've never had to do one of these. And complicating matters is the fact that normally we would go into closed session for a legal matter, but we are not a plaintiff or a defendant in this case. And we could go into closed session to talk to our attorney, but our attorney has not been involved in this case either. It's been the United States Department of Justice. So on November 16th, by Friday, November 16th, I have to file the victim impact statement with the federal court. The rest of the details are up on the screen and are self-explanatory. So at this point, given the fact that this matter is essentially closed up until the time of the sentencing hearing, I would like Chief Tidrington to come forward and give us a brief update. Could you do that now?
I can do it from here if that's...
Can you do it from up there so we can see you better?
Who's Mike Mitchell?
What is this symbol called?
Well, we'll discuss that.
Okay, Mike
okay,
Mitchell was charged...
Go ahead.
I'm sorry. Mike Mitchell was charged with one count, or he pled guilty to one count of theft of municipal funds from a municipality that received federal funding. There were several other charges that we were prepared to charge him with, including time card fraud. We learned while we're conducting our investigation that he was employed by an out-of-state company while he was still being paid by the township. We conducted a search warrant at his home in Livonia. We discovered that there was materials. He had just redone his bathroom, and there was he used materials, some of the materials that was used to purchase for the Four Seasons Pavilion at the Township Park.
Actually, it was the golf course
Both the
clubhouse
golf course and
renovations, the green and white tile and fixtures, which we uncovered during our forensic audit of Hilltop Golf Course.
Based on the search warrant, we discovered that there was a number of other items that were stolen from the township, such as a commercial lawn blower, a weed whip. Some of the items actually had Plymouth Township in magic marker written on them. We discovered those in his garage. We also discovered that he fraudulently prepared purchase orders to make it seem like he purchased certain equipment when in reality he purchased a commercial lawnmower that was delivered to his home in Livonia. And taken with that and another item, which was a Gator. It's a four-wheel drive vehicle. There were repairs done on this John Deere Gator to the tune of about $1,200. Shortly after the repairs were made, the Gator disappeared, and subsequent investigation determined that Mike Mitchell was responsible for the theft of that Gator as well. All told, it's approximately, well, over $10,000 in property that was stolen from the township. He, as I stated, has pled guilty, and he's going to be sentenced on January 17th, 2019.
And again, with respect to the victim impact statement, I have shared a copy of my draft with the chief. If any of you would like a copy, I can provide you one. I do not believe it is subject to FOIA. It is my understanding from the court that, I believe we have it right there, that it's only disclosed to the defendant and his attorney. So I'm pretty much going to encapsulate many of the other items that the chief brought up tonight. I don't really see myself as piling on, but it would be, I will be effectively representing the township and this board in the victim impact statement. And right now I got it under 2 pages. So, any questions or comments from the board?
Yes. How
Who's
much
Mike Mitchell?
property?
Hold on. Bob?
Who's Mike Mitchell?
Mike Mitchell is the former Parks Director for Plymouth Township who was hired in the spring of 2015. He served until he was officially terminated in November of 2016 after being absent without leave for more than 3 weeks, I believe, officially. Mr. Kermey.
Why was this in federal court, and what property was not returned that was lost?
All the property that we know of that was stolen has been recovered. It was an investigation that we contacted the FBI, and we began the investigation, and at some point we turned it over to them because some of the activities occurred out of the state of Michigan, so it was multiple jurisdictions, and it would, in my opinion, it was better suited for another agency to conduct this investigation.
And it was public corruption.
That is correct.
So why was it in federal court and not circuit?
Public corruption.
Well, it's a federal violation. I mean, it could have been charged in either state or federal. Clearly, it was funds stolen from a municipality that receives federal funds is what made it a federal crime.
Okay. Any other questions or comments for the chief? So this closes the matter, and do you know what type of penalty he will receive?
I don't. I think the guidelines are somewhere between 36 and 48 months. That doesn't mean that's what he'll be sentenced to. It could be anything from probation to prison time. I just don't know.
And he is residing somewhere in Illinois?
That is correct.
Okay. Thank you very much. All righty.
Rockford.
Okay, next up are the interviews for golf course management. Here's sort of our rules of engagement for tonight. I'd like Billy Casper to go first because they are the incumbent provider, and then ADM Ventures. I would like each group to sequester themselves out in the hallway, wait out in the hall until the other side is done, because we don't want you spying on each other, I guess. You can always watch this on TV later, so you'll see it eventually if you want. The other thing is, let's see, I really want to make this, and this is really for the board and for the public. We asked both firms to respond to an 18-hole golf course proposal with the clubhouse and the other amenities that currently exist there at Hilltop. We understand that we also we're operating on several different tracks right now. And one of the other tracks is we've hired Mr. Paul Albanese to conduct a draft master plan for Hilltop, which currently features a 9-hole course and different types of amenities. We are not asking you to comment on that. We're not asking you to change your proposal in midstream and bid on a 9-hole course. We want you to stay focused on the 4 corners of the RFP that we gave you several months ago. If you would like to comment on the Albanese proposal, you're certainly free to do that, but I don't plan on asking any questions about that. And I would also let the public know, too, that we're not here tonight to get into the nuts and bolts of the Albanese draft proposal. There'll be other times for that. We have it open for public comment until the end of the month. So that is a different track that I don't want to get bogged down into tonight. I think there's enough to keep us busy just with the RFP that we put out. So any other questions from the board in terms of ground rules? All right, then. I'd like to start with Billy Casper, and if the ADM guys could just wait out in the hall, and if we could have somebody just close the doors there, Sue, to keep them in the soundproof booth until the next contestant comes out. Cone of silence, whatever you want to call it. And then we will also need everyone's, anyone who's presenting tonight, we're going to need your name, obviously, for the record. Okay?
Okay,
Can we hear you? We can hear you okay?
I think so. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, I can hear you. Okay, let's go.
All right, well, good evening. You have my slides, correct?
I do.
Okay, wonderful. So, good evening again, and on behalf of Billy Casper Golf and our team in attendance, thank you all for the opportunity to respond to the RFP and for the last 8 years of partnership. I'd like to start by just introducing our team. We have several members here today. First off, I'll start in the back. Brian Krieger, who's our superintendent of Hilltop Golf Course. Brian has over 20 years of maintaining golf course experience, and he's been at Hilltop for 13 years now, I believe. Next to him is Matt Fauerbach. Matt is Brian's resource from an agronomic maintenance standpoint and helps oversee all of the facilities that we operate in Michigan. Roy Holt is our assistant superintendent / mechanic / jack of all trades, who assists Brian with maintenance of the golf course. Jack Johnson, new this year, is our assistant manager, jack of all trades, and assistant to Aaron Spakowski on the end, who's our general manager of the golf course. So tonight we're going to walk through just a brief overview of Billy Casper Golf. I think most of you are familiar with our firm, so I'll keep that brief, but want to just talk a little bit about that relationship and then move into the current agreement that we have with the township and some of the differences in our revised proposal as well. We'll talk a little bit about the financial position of Hilltop and what we see as the outlook, and then talk about the options that we see moving forward.
Bob, can we zoom in on that more?
Yeah, I'm trying to figure out how to.
There you go.
Great. I've gone through the introduction, so we can move to the next slide. That'd be great.
Okay.
So a little bit about Billy Casper Golf. We are a full-service management firm. We are based in Northern Virginia. We operate 5 golf courses in Michigan. Our model is centralized but also decentralized in that we host a lot of these core functions up on the screen: marketing, accounting, payroll, IT, HR, legal, et cetera, through our corporate office in Virginia, which is efficient for us. We also have people like myself and Matt in the field who oversee facility operations as well, and obviously our team in the field at the site level. Next. We've been around since 1989. We'll be celebrating our 30th anniversary next year. We do operate more municipal facilities in the country than any other firm. We have, as I mentioned, 5 facilities in Michigan, and all 5 are municipal. Okay, so into some of the details of our current agreement. Again, we provide turnkey management services. What this means is the economics of the golf course belong to the township, all expenses, all revenues. We are paid a fee to manage the golf course, essentially from start to finish. We have been operating Hilltop since 2011. It started out on a monthly fee basis, and in 2016, with the assistance of this board and approval, was renegotiated into a 3-year contract with a series of 3-year renewals. So what changed in that structure is we went from a base management fee structure, which was around $82,000 a year, to a revenue-based management fee structure, which is shown up on the screen. But essentially, if revenues are below $600,000, which they have been historically, we earn 11% of revenues per month. These include additional incentives for food and beverage revenue growth. And again, as the reason we're here today, we have a 3-year term that's expiring in March. So a few key changes. We will be offering a management services contract again, so similar structure, nothing would change on a day-to-day operations basis. Management fees would go back to a base fee structure, which is $6,000 a month. This is proposed to increase by the lesser of either 2% or CPI index annually. Includes incentives for profitability rather than revenues. Ultimately, bottom line is where we all share in the success of Hilltop. Those are proposed at 15% of positive earnings. We did offer this year, and I think this is important, the management fee guarantee. If, for whatever reason, losses were in excess of $75,000, which they were in 2017, Billy Casper Golf is offering to cover those losses beyond $75,000 up to 4 months of fees. So round numbers, essentially $25,000 we're putting at stake, and gives us all the incentive, obviously, to continue to reduce losses and bring the golf course back to break even. We are proposing, per the RFP's request, a 5-year term expiring in March 2024, allowing for 5-year renewal terms at mutual consent. Are there any questions on that before we move on? Yes, Mr. Kerman.
So in 2017 and 2018, you received no management fee. Is that correct?
We have received 11% of annual revenues.
Up to 600,000.
So you got 55,000.
11% of 550,000 is about what you.
If the facility was earning more than 600,000 in revenue, Billy Casper Golf would receive 13% of revenues rather than 11.
Yeah, 58,000.
Of the amount over 600.
That's correct.
Ready?
Sure. Any other questions on specifics to this? Is that all pretty straightforward? Okay, just a brief history of Hilltop. I think most in the audience know, but Hilltop originally was a 9-hole golf course. It has been around over 90 years now, so it makes it one of the most established golf courses in the region. This story's been told over and over, multiple outlets, and we've actually told it here from this podium before. But obviously, golf's challenges are twofold, both supply and demand. Ultimately, we have the same amount of golfers as we had in 1990. We just have 35% more golf courses nationwide, and that certainly has impacted this area. Now that trend is turning. We are seeing some of the supply side go away. It's a natural response to where we're at. It's going to take some time, but we do continue to see that correcting itself over the next 10 to 15 years. Prior to Billy Casper Golf, the facility was leased for many years during golf's heydays, was with American Golf for some time, and then another local group for several years before ultimately they and the township parted in 2011. That's when Billy Casper Golf came in, and we were brought in under a management services structure, and the operation has been subsidized ever since.
Next.
Hey, Nick, just a quick question back on the fee structure. I was trying to look something up. So what have you, what's been your average or median, like over the last 5 years, total?
For management fees?
Yeah, because you get a cut of the concession as well?
We do not. Ours is based off of total facility revenue, so that does actually include golf, food and beverage, retail, all in. I guess the best way to answer that is when we first started in 2011, the monthly base management fee was $6,500. That went up through annual increases to, say, around $7,200 a month. And then that's when we came back to the board and negotiated the 3-year renewal, which is at 11% of revenues, which has been around, give or take, $5,000 to $5,500 a month.
So your total revenue to Billy Castro Golf is about $65,000?
It's around that. It's been less than that the last couple of years.
But that's your net fee after you pay, that you don't have to pay your employees out of that. That's net of.
That is how we make a living.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Right.
Say again,
Those numbers wouldn't work.
say again, the employee salaries
Are part of the expense.
that the township
We
covers.
cover, yeah.
We're covering the employee salaries, is that right?
We
Correct.
cover all the operating costs, and then they get a fee. So their average fee has been, 65,000 or something like that. That's what goes back to corporate.
That's correct. And that is included in our earnings statement as well. We factor in the management fees as an administrative expense of the golf course.
Yeah.
So those are included in our numbers.
Okay. Whenever you're ready.
I'm ready. Okay, we'll go through these fairly quickly. This is a history of revenues since 2011, 2011 being the initial year, startup year. There was no food license, no liquor license, so that one's a bit of an outlier. You can see best years 2015, 2012, also very good weather years as well, no coincidence there, but pretty stable in between 500,000 and 600,000 per year.
So that's the primary variable in all of those years, except 2011, is weather.
Weather's the single biggest factor in revenue. Certainly, there are other factors in that, but weather, it's like anything. When you have more days in the year that you're able to be open, certainly you're going to do more revenue and vice versa. I think we might have skipped over rounds, but generally speaking, Hilltop has been between, that's okay, has been around 22 to 25,000 rounds per year.
Nick, do we still do foot golf?
We do.
Are those rounds included as part of these?
They are, and to be honest, it's been a small amount. We do anywhere between $1,500 and $2,000 of revenue per year on it. We have far less expenses on it. It was minimal investment. It hasn't, unfortunately, been a windfall of $20,000. That would have been great, but it certainly hasn't been a detractor from our revenues either, or bottom line. Similarly, expenses have been fairly consistent through the years, between $580,000 and $650,000. Ready? Oh, back up one.
I think when I hit the down arrow, it skipped.
Goes
I
to the
apologize
next
for
one,
that.
yeah.
That's okay.
That's what it's doing, yeah. Sorry. I'll scroll.
And this last slide is the operating deficit of Hilltop since 2011. The average deficit has been around $70,000 per year. Now, there have been, again, some outliers here, 2017 being the most difficult year, and again, 2012 being the best year.
What happened in 17? Why was that such an outlier?
A lot of things, and quite honestly, it was a combination of items. Revenues, we had a difficult weather year in 2017. That certainly accounts for some of it. We had some unanticipated, unbudgeted, and one-time expenses that came about that year. And frankly, we tried a different pricing scheme early in the year that, as we got into June and July, we decided to go a different direction, and by the time we got it corrected and going back where we wanted to, it had an impact.
Nick, the extensive use of Groupon, does that contribute to this? Obviously, the lack of revenue, but, I mean, I see these Groupons all over the place,
Sure,
for Hilltop Golf Course
sure. And others.
and others.
Yeah.
But, I mean, it's a tremendous deal. I mean, you can play for almost nothing.
Groupon is, it's an acquisition tool, and we have to be careful, obviously, in our use of it as it becomes, people are Groupon loyal, too. Anybody who's used Groupon can find, obviously, certain vendors that are constantly on it as well, and it kind of becomes your price on that platform as well. So we're mindful of that. We don't want to be on Groupon all the time. It is a powerful acquisition tool with their database in a way that we have found to get new customers to our golf course. And from that point, hopefully we can convert them to longtime customers as well.
But one of the things we've been always proud of was Plymouth Township residents, 48170, paid less than other people. With the Groupons, basically everybody pays a very, very minimum amount of money for golf.
You have to be mindful of it. And it's not the only discount that's available. There's a number of them. Obviously, pricing has changed a lot in the last 10 or 15 years. It used to be open the doors, here's our rate, come pay it,
Exactly.
and we'll raise it $1 next year. This is a chart that represents the rounds played both nationally and per region. This is provided by Golf Data Tech and the National Golf Foundation. It is the leading reporting of essentially how the golf market is doing this year. Obviously, weather plays a huge role in this as well. But on the highlighted portion, you can see this is through September. Rounds of golf are down 3.3% nationwide. In Michigan, they're down slightly less, about 0.5% and 1.7%. October was not good. November has not been good in terms of weather. It's been cold and wet. These numbers will more than likely worsen over the next couple months as the reporting comes out. Show that slide to compare a little bit about how we've. Hawaii's been okay, right?
Yeah. Hawaii, if you can't see it, minus 6.6% for year-to-date.
That's it, my trip's off.
Essentially, west of the Rockies has been dry this year, and golf has been up. The East Coast has actually fared worse than here. A little bit further south, we have some courses in Cincinnati that are down 6 to 7% in those regions as well. So overall, Michigan hasn't been as impacted. There were a couple tropical storms that came through that fortunately you all missed, which was great. Ready? Okay, so second point, Michigan rounds down 0.5%, Detroit market down 1.7%. Through September, same time period, Hilltop's rounds are actually up this year, 8.6% through September, and it's not because we're discounting. We're getting the same amount of revenue per round that we did last year. So we've taken through those rounds and essentially achieved revenues in line with that.
What do you attribute that drastic difference between the rest of the market? You guys are good.
We're good. Yeah, I think there's some truth to that. I think some of the changes we made middle of last year had an impact on where we are this year. Our dynamic pricing, the way we approach the pricing on the weekends in particular, I think we tried very hard to protect our price early last year on the weekends. And it had an impact in an adverse way. So we had to make some changes. We added a third tier to our pricing during the middle of the day, in between peak pricing and twilight pricing, which has helped as well. And we have used third-party sites such as Golf Now, Group Golfer, and Groupon to our benefit, and just a little bit smarter than we have in the past. And on the expense side, we haven't incurred some of the expenses that we had last year too.
The golf carts, do we own those or do we lease them?
The township, I believe, owns the golf carts at this point. Is that correct?
And how old are they?
They're coming off of, they were bonded. This is the last year of paying the bond.
2011?
More than
And
that.
then does this operating cost loss also reflect the cost of the bond payments or not?
No,
No.
no.
And you get your water from us as well? Do you pay for the water, or do we provide that? Is that from the
We
pond
get a bill.
only?
For
Exclusively?
electric and,
So, well, yeah,
Okay.
So you're not supplementing with city water?
no,
currently.
that would cost a fortune.
We've done it before,
Nick,
like in a dry year or something.
For the fireworks.
Nick, rumors of St. John's and their ups and downs, did that cause a spike in Hilltop play due to leagues?
So there was a scheduled renovation, which ultimately we pulled one league away. There were originally going to be 3 leagues, but when St. John's ultimately didn't close, 2 went back. Anytime there's a course closure, those rounds are dispersed, and it's not as if one course closes and another course down the road gets all of them. It tends to disperse pretty well around about a 10 to 20 mile radius usually of where they go. That is happening. There are going to be golf courses that operated this year that are not going to operate next year, and that will help, even in a small way.
Are you marketing to those that just come here, we can take care of you?
We do.
Thanks.
Okay, so let's continue with the slides here.
Sir. Okay, if you could go up just one, Bob. I apologize.
I don't know why, right here?
That's okay. Yes, down one more.
No, that's what I did.
Oh, you did it. My mistake.
All right, no worries.
Okay, so what we see in 2019 afforded the opportunity to continue on managing the golf course. Hilltop is a value leader in the market. It is one of the most affordable golf courses around. It needs to continue to embrace that and offer truly the value proposition in terms of pricing. Yes, we always want to get more from each round. Ultimately, we have to balance that against where we are in the market. We want to continue to enhance course conditions. I think that's been a big win for us the last couple of years. We're not Augusta National. We don't aspire to be. But Hilltop has gotten better. And I think if you ask our customers, the feedback we have gotten, the golf course is making strides in the right direction, which is great. Continued labor and expense efficiencies, we're also realists. We know what the goal is here, and we'll talk about this a little bit more later, but there's always opportunities to save more money, and we're always looking for ways to do that. Marketing, again, focusing on new player acquisition, continuing to ingrain ourselves into the community. We have an annual pass membership program, which is new. We're starting to build to target players who are our most frequent players. We are going to continue to target outings. We don't do a ton of these. We do around 1,000 outing rounds per year, but we really can target that outing that's in our sweet spot of 40 to 60 players where we might be able to bring them in the clubhouse, and we just don't have the large outdoor space or indoor space to accommodate much larger groups. In-house leagues have been a huge success for us. These are leagues that essentially we invented a few years back and have grown from 0 to 50-plus players on Tuesday and Thursday. These are folks who may not be part of a larger established league, but they just want to play every Tuesday and Thursday night, and we invite them to our in-house league and also grow our private league schedule as well. And then continue to build upon the dynamic pricing efforts which we'll always be honing. Yes, sir.
Dynamic pricing means it's like you change the price based on demand?
That's
Time of day?
correct.
All right.
That's correct. And we use a combination of some automatic tools that help us make those decisions, and we also use the input of our staff. If we know that the course down the road is having an outing on Saturday, we might not go down on pricing and might not listen to the model necessarily and just use our local knowledge to that effect. But again, it's not a, hey, we're $35 all the time. That model just doesn't work anymore. And by and large, this is the way of not just the future, but the now in terms of how golf courses are pricing.
So there's no longer a board that says this is the price. You have to ask.
There might be a board in a lot of places, but generally you go online and you'll see the prices for the different points during the day. There certainly are still established rack rates, which we attempt to hold on whenever possible, and then discount where we need the additional volume. Junior programming is obviously critical to growth of golf. We had some success this year with a new program, TGA. This is something we were doing in previous years with our own staff, and ultimately made the decision economically. It benefited us to move away from that model, and we brought in TGA Junior Golf. They had 180 juniors come through Hilltop this year, which is great, and it was all revenue to the club with no expense. So that was a big win. We look forward to improving on that next year. And then a new technology update. Billy Casper Golf has dedicated to a new point-of-sale vendor. G1 is a cloud-based system, which will allow us to essentially be much more like the modern retail experience. You'll be able to come to our golf course and check in on, essentially we could use tablets to check folks in, and we could be more mobile. Our starters out on the first tee can have tablets, see what's going on with the tee sheet, and also we can process sales on our beverage cart through tablets as well. Budgeted goals, we do see an increase based on some of the successes from this year and some of the early returns on leagues and outings signing up and what we know is happening in the market with contraction. Our average rate per round will be similar, slightly up to this year. Revenues in turn will be above $600,000. Cost of goods, labor, operating expenses are all projected to be similar to what they are this year, with the exception of we have added, and this is not necessarily a must-have, but we did build into the projection an operating lease for golf carts, which is about $20,000 per year is what we factored in for that. We can get by, certainly, with golf carts in 2019, but that's in there nonetheless.
What's kind of normal for this level of a golf course? Normal life cycle of a golf cart?
Yeah, we're about there. 7 to 8 years. There certainly are golf courses that cycle them every 4 or 5 years. We have gas carts. They're working. They're fine. Every year we have a few more dings and repairs that we have to take care of. But there are certainly golf courses on the value in the value spectrum that are over 10 years as well. If you take care of them, they can last a long time. Again, new carts, possibly a new opportunity to raise pricing and maybe generate some more revenue. So generally speaking, and I think kind of taking a step back over the last year, being asked to reassess what we're doing, going through this RFP process, working with the golf course committee. I know there's several members of the committee here tonight. And frankly, just listening to the community and some of the ideas that are out there, I think has been very positive. And as we mentioned to the golf course committee as we went through this process, we don't come here with all the answers. We don't come here saying that Billy Casper Golf is the only answer and you'd be crazy to go another direction. We know there are other options. Ultimately, We want what's best for the township, and hopefully we can be real and candid with you all about where you are right now and what some potential options are. So that's where we're coming from. So I want to talk a little bit about a few paths that, the major paths that you have, one of which is the expense reduction path. You can move to the next slide. So in some ways, we've been on this. And it's simple to see how this can be effective, right? I mean, you get a very quick impact when you make expense decisions and save money. It has the quickest impact to the bottom line. Ultimately, there are going to be expenses that come up, and over time, the more and more you cut, it's going to impact revenues as well. So this is part of our strategy, and it has been. It will, I think, have to continue to be for the foreseeable future. Another way to look at golf in general, as we go through a kind of a stabilization period, for lack of a better way to put it, the golf courses that are succeeding and starting to grow revenues again are the ones that have committed for the long haul. These are the ones who have said, you know what, we have a golf course. It may not have been easy the last few years, but we're in it. We're in it for the long haul. There are many golf courses that are starting to put some money back into their operations. We're realists. Again, I mean, we've been here 8 years, and we know that there's not a huge capital fund available for anything and everything that we'd like to do at Hilltop. What we would suggest is, over the next few years, try to take small steps to show your customer base that you're committed to golf. That could be doing little things, just repairing some tee boxes that are uneven or not as big as they used to be. Or it could be repairing a bunker here and there. It could be doing some tree work so that it's not quite as tight, so that the golf course is easier to play and you can find your ball a little bit better, and might increase our throughput in terms of golfers being able to get through the golf course faster. Drainage enhancements. Several of these things we can do in-house, several we can do very economically and make an impact on the customers, let them know that, hey, we're here for the long haul and we're dedicated to getting better. This doesn't mean we need to spend $1.5 million. It doesn't mean we have to spend $100,000. But we should, either through the operating budget or through small capital investments, show a commitment to the golf course.
But over the next 5 years, we're going to have new golf carts, right? I mean, they're not going to last 5 more years.
They could, but you would have issues with them. You'd have to replace a few.
We got to improve the paths, right? Most of the paths. The clubhouse is subpar. What else am I missing? Well, there's a lot. Trees. What about trees? Cutting trees. I mean, are you guys doing the bulk of that, or is that still something that's going to be like a special expense down the road?
Right. We do what we can, with the crew. You're looking at the winter crew right here, where we have the opportunity to do that. And some trees are just beyond the scope of what we can do, certainly. To answer your question, are those things required? I mean, you have to have golf carts to operate a golf course. You have to have mowers. Do we know if these golf carts are going to run 5 more years? It's possible, but there are also options to potentially take the equity you have out of the carts, engage perhaps an operating lease that might be a little more economical as well, and in that case maybe commit to more of a 6-year cycle for golf carts.
Are you saying sell them as used and then redeploy that as a down payment on a lease deal?
Or bake it in potentially to, most of the major vendors would pay you for the golf carts that you have, either give you the cash now, which you could use for whatever, or use that cash toward the value of the lease that you're financing.
Used golf carts right now are going anywhere from $1,000 to $2,000. And I think we priced it out, if we were to sell our carts today, we would get somewhere around $95,000, most optimistically.
Yeah. And we're able, we work with all three major vendors. We negotiate this. And gas carts are certainly trading at a high value for the exact reason that we referenced. It's, they last 8 years. They last 10. It's not, you're not replacing the electric batteries in them. So there's a huge market for them. Farms, businesses, retirees. Secondary market is pretty healthy on them.
Okay.
But again, the golf course will open in 2019, 2020, as it is. Some things you'll have to address are potholes. Can you patch them versus replace them? That's kind of where we are right now, and we get it.
Okay. Well, we kind of talked about that.
Yep. Next one. I just last comment is on capital investment. Big picture. I think next slide. So the master plan was referenced. I know our task is to discuss Hilltop as it is today. We were able to attend. Paul. I think Paul's here, right?
In the back.
There he moved on us. Okay. We were able to attend Paul's session. We're very familiar with Paul's work. He did a fantastic job, as expected, with the master plan layout, some great ideas, and I think a lot of the folks in the community have echoed that. Again, we don't know necessarily what this is going to lead to. It needs to be vetted out. I think it's a fantastic idea, personally. I think our team.
What would be the revenue associated with turning that into a 9-hole course?
It depends what it is. If there are significant upgrades to the experience, if it is a fun golf course to play, it is a very unique idea to think about, hey, I can go out and play 9 holes on perhaps a shorter track, and then I'll go back out and play a completely different feeling 9. We don't have that in this market. It's a very creative idea. I think we can sell it. And 9-hole rounds are, I think, increasing in popularity in general as well. I don't know the answer to it. I'd love to put some pen to paper and at least project, potentially is this a golf course, depending on, again, what the township decides. Is it of the quality that we can charge what we're charging now or even more? Possibly. Can we get through the same amount of leagues that we're getting through now? Possibly. So it's possible that revenues could be quite close to what you have now, but you'd have to see. You have to see what the final product is. I would say on the expense side, we've heard that if you change to a 9-hole course, then you have 50% of the expenses. It's probably more like 65 to 70% of the expenses. We're in a high fixed expense business. And, if you do want to up the ante in terms of what Hilltop is conditioning-wise, too, you have to consider that in terms of, what's the quality of care that we are putting into this golf course, chemicals, fertilizers, mowing patterns, customer expectations as well. But just because the golf course is cutting acreage in half doesn't necessarily mean it's 50% of expenses. You would need half the golf carts, true. But you'd still need folks to manage the golf course.
Plus, I would like to see some additional marketing being done that draws upon the uniqueness.
Yeah.
I mean, not just local, but outstate and region. I'm not sure your Steve Brown or the marketing guy might be the best one for that, but it's certainly worth looking into, I think.
It certainly would be a unique story, and I think given where golf is right now, time is one of the main factors that keeps people from playing. If you have a 9-hole golf course that's unique and maybe different, and it's higher quality and more fun to play, then I guess the message is we're open to it. I think there's a lot of great ideas that have come out of this. If we can help in any way in terms of, again, putting pen to paper and just projecting out, hey, here's, given what we know of the property, here's how, and what we know of the plan, here's how we would see it panning out. If we can help in any way, we'd love to do that. But, so I guess I just close by saying we enjoy being part of this community. It truly is a great place to be and to live. A lot of our people live here. And we just, we're thankful for the opportunity to be here. And I think you know what you can count on with us. We are certainly going to try to do everything we can to get this golf course ultimately to a plus position. I think it's going to take some time, realistically, to say that we can go from where we are right now to making the same amount of money. Yes. Is it going to happen in 2019? We don't think so right now, but we're confident that we can go in the right direction and keep getting that number closer to zero. If we don't, then we're going to pay for it through the new proposed structure. So again, you can count on us to represent you in a very professional way. We believe in high quality course conditions at a great value. We believe in great customer service, and we believe in partnership. And you know, I hope that regardless of what happens, you would agree that we've certainly done our best to be the best partners we can.
Do you have any statistics on residents based on by zip code who plays at the course? We've heard numbers 20 to 25% are from the 48170 zip code. Is that an accurate number?
So we've presented these in the past, and I believe that's probably the origin of where these numbers are coming from. That's close. And bear in mind, golf is a regional game. It is. We pull golfers from all throughout the region. We pull golfers from Canada that come over here and play. So that's normal. And we do this, we show these zip code analysis to a lot of municipalities, and I think a lot of them scratch their head like, hey, okay, so only 25% of our residents are accounting for the rounds. Now, flip side of that is almost always the zip code that the golf course is in is by far the highest population of golfers who play the golf course, and it's usually 3 or 4 to 1 of the next closest zip code. But if you look at our zip code analysis, there's hundreds of zip codes that are represented.
Do you have statistics on when you talk about the number of rounds, do you have the statistics on how many are those 9-hole rounds versus 18-hole rounds?
It's a good question. I don't know that the industry has really done a good job of breaking that down. And again, I think some of it is regional as well. This region in particular, parts of Ohio, Pennsylvania, we do a lot of 9-hole rounds because we do a lot of leagues here, which just doesn't exist in other parts of the country. It's just kind of the fabric of how people get their golf in Michigan, which is great. We love it. And we're busy from 4 to 6 p.m. on weekdays, which is, you know, we talk to other operators in the South. They're just like, wow, I'd kill to have that. But I would say our mix skews more toward 9 holes here and probably throughout the North than some other places.
Okay, any other questions from the board? All right. Any questions from the public? Yes, ma'am.
You want to repeat the question? Yeah. Because my judgment is on the recording, it won't come through, right?
The question is, and good. Yeah, good question. Not a golfer. Thank you for the, great. So, right. Right. So essentially, the question is, Hilltop, as it stands today, great value, it's losing money. If it continues on the same path without a significant change in the model or investment, it will continue to, yes, it will continue. I would say for the short term, we see a subsidy. Part of the reason why we built in I guess, a line in the sand at $75,000 is, first off, that's been the annual subsidy since we've been there. We're saying that we are going to get better than that, or else we're going to share in the loss. It's hard to say from a competitive pressure standpoint what's going to change if other golf courses potentially shut down or reused for other purposes. We may naturally get there with the rounds being dispersed elsewhere. In combination with us doing some of the things we've done well with pricing and growing leagues, we may get there based on that. I just think conservatively speaking and realistically, based on our experience of 8 years, it's going to take a couple years for us to get back to break even. Yeah. And I don't know necessarily if you put $100,000 into it next year that it automatically gets there. It's not, it's not a one-to-one relationship. It is tough. It's tough sledding out there for golf right now. And, I think, again, to the point that if you commit to the golf course, if you say, we're going to be here in 30 years, what do we need to do to be successful? And that could be investment. It could be just continuing to hunker down and wait for conditions to improve. But we're on a good path, I think, relative to just how the golf market has been. We certainly, we want to be better. We can be better, but I think it's probably going to be marginally at first.
To give you some perspective, the golf course has probably contributed about $2 million to our coffers over its life, maybe more. It used to produce $300,000 a year in the 90s.
I find that hard to believe.
$300,000 a year?
That was net income?
That was the check. We got a check. We should investigate it, but we used to get a check from the operator.
But let's just look at operating deficits in the last
10 years, right.
I mean, obviously the trend is not $2 million in our coffers, so.
We also carry roughly a $500,000
loan.
What do you call it? It's a loan. We carry that on our books. If we, that's a debt that we carry every year forward in our books, and to pay that, we have no plan to pay that off. So that's also a liability.
What kind of debt? What are you talking about?
Mark, you want to?
It's basically
There was a loan a number of years ago, $500,000 was loaned from the general fund to the golf course for renovations, equipment, et cetera. That loan still sits on the books today. There's still a payable from the golf course to the general fund.
For things like when the clubhouse was remodeled, stuff like that?
That's my understanding, yeah. It was a number of years ago.
Yeah. Before your time.
That was
Pre-Mark.
Pre-Mark.
Yeah.
Okay, I have another question for you. Okay. Anyone else? I know we got more questions.
It would be best to have people come up there.
Okay. You're going to have to come up so we can get you on the record.
Mike Barizak. I just would once again like to ask the board where the funds funds for the master plan are going to come from. I have not heard a number that's been associated with the implementation of the master plan. And as I have said before, the master plan is wonderful. It serves the community's needs. But I have not heard anyone address where those funds are coming from. We just addressed we can't afford to put $100,000 in the Hilltop as an 18-hole golf course. Where are we going to get $4, $5, $6, $10 million? The first shovel that we put into that property over there, it's $1 million. So that's the question that I just haven't heard answered or hasn't been addressed during this whole process, which is going on about a year now.
Well, I think we've addressed it in many different ways, and there is no answer to it right now. There is no financial plan in place to implement either the improvements that any operator currently needs at the 18-hole course, nor is there a financial plan for the proposed draft master plan, which is the 9-hole course with other amenities.
To clarify, the master plan is a shopping list. Never was cost part of that analysis. And that was stated up front.
It hasn't.
It was a charrette, a design charrette.
Soccer fields are artificial turf are $1.5 million each. There's 4 of them.
So just to answer the question, I mean, we're not, it's not, it's one of those other paths that we have to go down, but we're looking at many different options right now at Hilltop, and, that's one of them. If we want to go down that path, then we're going to have a more intense conversation about what the cost is going to be. And where do we get the money for that? I don't know right now.
Well, I think maybe we're getting a lot of people's hopes up. Just the fact that this could be 3 to 5 years.
Yeah, but you got to start somewhere, right. And you got to start with something. I can't, what comes first? I got to have a plan and then say, okay, that's a plan. We're not going to adopt everything that's in that plan. We may never adopt any of it, but financing is going to have to come along at some point.
It's a great plan. I'm not, it's a great plan. It's just, we just went through an election, we voted for the safety issue or we turned down the park. I mean, so is this going to be something that's going to be on the ballot again, or where is this money coming? We don't have $100,000 for Hilltop right now. We sure don't have.
We've got to cross that bridge later on.
Hi, Chris Hunter. Just one question for you, and I know we've discussed this. With the decrease of rounds played annually, just on the national level, courses closing around the area, money's tight. So how are you calculating a projected increase in rounds, given all the factors against you right now?
Good question. Two major things. We have momentum. We've increased rounds this year in a down year. So we're on to certain things in terms of how we're pricing and how we're attracting new leagues to our golf course. So we're counting on that to continue. We certainly count on, we budget for normal weather circumstances too. We're in a pattern now of 2 straight years of down weather. Will it come back? Who knows? I mean, there's no such thing as normal weather, as they say. It might be better, might be worse, but we budget and we project based on historical averages in terms of what we can put through. But that's why we feel it. We're going to continue some of the successes we have this year, implement some new ideas for next year, grow our membership as well. But that's where we see the rounds coming from.
You're looking at 20% over 5 years. Is that the rounds played that you're projecting?
Rounds played, you're looking at the...
Oh, I'm sorry, golf rounds, 12% increase over 5 years.
Okay.
You think you're on par for that? You think that you're on track for that right now based on last year and this year?
I think it's going to be a challenge, to be honest with you. I mean, it's, you see where we've been um, obviously. And yes, we've made some improvements this year. I think we're going to have to count on our ability to grow leagues aggressively, to grow outings aggressively, and just be better at getting golfers through the course. And to an extent, make the experience better on the golf course through small improvements and just making it a little bit easier to play and more enjoyable. Yes.
What's the difference between Billy Casper, we spoke to 2 months ago, and new and improved Billy Casper? So your plan in terms of, I'm looking at the same group of people, I'm looking at the same issues we've discussed over time. What's the change between yesterday and going forward, apart from the management?
So you're talking about strategic plan.
I'm looking for an elevator.
Right, okay.
Tell me the difference between the guys that we've met and the same guys who are going to be the new improved working partners with the town.
Right. Well, I think, first off, it is the same us. I don't want to discount the fact that we have certainly put a lot of positive energy into Hilltop and made some strides. Look, this was a difficult situation from the get-go. And, you know, I know that everybody, we probably wouldn't be standing here, quite honestly, if the numbers were not 70,000 that way, they were the other way. We get it. So, to be honest with you, I think what you're going to see is we're going to be continuing to look at expenses, both in season and off season, in order to look at how we can drag as much to the bottom line as we can. We're also going to be building on the successes of this year, knowing what we know with pricing, and it's going to be marginal increases. It's not going to be 12% in 1 year. I think anybody who is counting on that, I mean, something would have to seismically shift in the market for a golf course right now to increase by 20%, whatever it may be. So yeah, I think you're more looking at, hey, you know, if we can increase revenues by 4%, 5% a year, that's good right now.
When do we need to let them know by?
Well, we've already given our notice under the current contract that we intend to terminate, but obviously we can rescind that, or we can certainly execute a new contract. So that would be the route that we would take. We do have time constraints, though. I mean, your basically your season as far as golf goes, people playing, you're looking at March maybe, or we had a super warm day in February, which we've had. I mean, what are you open? Are you ready to go like as of February 1st or March 1st or what?
We are, and we're prepared. Obviously, we know when the contract ends. We have contracts that terminate December 31st, and some that come during the middle of the year as well. But obviously, the sooner that we can prepare and lock in groups, right, leagues, outings that we have, and we've already done some of that. But
when does the current contract expire?
March.
March what?
Next year.
I mean, March 1 or March 30?
I think it's an odd date. It's like March 23rd or something like that. I don't know why. Any other questions from the public? Yes.
Would you be willing to consider other recreation at the golf course, like helping manage maybe a cross-country ski day in partnership with a local company that rents cross-country ski equipment, or hosting events such as like movie nights for families or adults, or classic movies when the golf course essentially would be shut down because it's dark? Or other type of recreation activities that would open up use of the golf course to other folks in the township?
Thank you. We are open to anything that serves the community better. And I guess the best way to put it is we would have to consider whether it pencils out from an economic standpoint. Do we feel like this is going to generate more revenue? Is it something that serves the community? Is it something that the township wants? And that's a great part of our relationship, is that we can go to the township and we have the relationship to say, is this something that you think adds value to the community? But we approach every decision that way. To answer your question, we're open to anything. We're open to being a 9-hole golf course. We're open to soccer fields. We're open to whatever serves the township best. That's what we signed up for 8 years ago, and that's what we'd sign up for again.
Would your firm be able to manage, cultivate, maintain soccer fields?
Yes.
You've done that thing. You've done that kind of thing before?
Oh, they're the best soccer fields around, absolutely.
Okay.
But no, it does make sense, especially if you have resources available and they're nearby. We do that. We do maintain common grounds in certain relationships. We maintain parks. We maintain campgrounds.
Okay.
Yes, our staff has the skills and expertise to do that.
Okay.
Nick,
Yeah. Go ahead.
Nick, a question regarding liquor license. Today it's presently, I guess, in the township's name. Does that give you guys any problems or?
Has not.
None? Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions from the public? All right. I think we're good. Thank you. Let's give you a little bit more ground rule. We're not making any decisions tonight. We're going to have to ponder this a little bit more, consider both the firms and other options that are out there. So we will definitely get back to you. We recognize that we are up against a deadline of sorts, so we don't want to have a vacant facility there in the spring. So we certainly will expedite this. Paul Albanese?
Yeah, but we need to make a decision soon.
Yeah, I agree. And I mean, the public comment period on the Albanese plan is open until the end of the month. So,
But that won't affect our decision on golf for now. This isn't, we're drawing a box around the master plan.
right.
Another box around this.
They're dual paths at this point. And again, I don't want to pull a bait and switch on you guys and say, oops, we didn't really mean it. Now we want you to do a 9-hole with golf with dog parks and soccer fields and stuff. So we're not trying to play games. So
We're flexible, and we appreciate the process. So thank you again.
Okay, thank you very much. Gentlemen, I would propose a 10-minute recess, and then we'll come back and interview the other firm. And you guys can wait out in the hall, or you can leave. I mean, I'm not trying to kick you out, but you're not going to learn anything new tonight if you stick around. I'll be straight with you. Okay, we're back, and this is the proposal from ADM Ventures LLC. So please come forward. You're already here, and introduce yourself and your team. And basically, the ground rules haven't changed since the last guys left, so you're ready to go.
Excellent. My name is Tony Moscone, 1586 Rockfield, Troy, Michigan. I have Doug Palm here, who is our golf course superintendent from Cattails, been with us ever since 1991. I have Jim Gorney, who is our golf course manager, has been managing our golf course at Cattails for about 5 years. But even before that, he was managing for us at Total Sports for about 12 years. There you go, 16. That's our team.
Just let me know when you want to switch.
All right, before we get started, this is a nuts and bolts PowerPoint. I think the proposal, I might have gone a little overboard, but the proposal has got all the information with regards to who we are, what we've been doing. A couple things I'll share real quick. We built and we have operated Cattails Golf Club since 1991. We built and own Total Sports since 1997. So we're very familiar with both sides of that equation. So as the township supervisor touched on, Kurt, that if we have to pivot, if something were to occur in a township where it goes to 9 holes and athletic fields, that's right in our wheelhouse. From a golf course standpoint, we're an 18-hole golf course, driving range, clubhouse, outings, events, leagues, weddings, showers, banquets, all sorts of things. From Total Sports, we're 13 locations strong, 2.5 million annual visitors, over 1 million square feet under management in all different varieties of ways. So we can pivot or change at that point. I'm going to, this is, as I said, really a synopsis of the proposal. Instead of just reading it verbatim, we'll just try to go through it and then get to a Q&A. This part right here, what I wanted to express is we played the golf course, I've read the reviews. I think these two statements go hand in hand. Our goal will be to make Hilltop Golf Course a profitable venture while creating a valuable experience for golfers. At the same time, to do that, we're going to have to focus on these 3 areas: the business systems, the clubhouse grill, and most importantly, the golf course. If we don't improve the golf course, the increase in revenue, profitability won't occur. So, as I said, these two things really go hand in hand together. Next page. Business systems. We're going to utilize the 2 key ventures that I'm involved with, which is, once again, Total Sports and Cattails Golf Club. Through that, obviously, we're going to mine our Cattails database, but at the same time, our very large Total Sports database, and also, hopefully, we'll have the ability to utilize the Hilltop database. At Cattails Golf Club, we use the Golf Now reservation system, which is incredible. It takes care of online tee times. It takes care of, we have a call center that's available 24/7. It takes care of our website. It does our emails. It does a dynamic pricing where the computer automatically looks at our tee sheet and changes the pricing as the course becomes more busy, or if it's in a weekend, it adjusts the price automatically up or down. Am I missing anything else? That is the key to our system as far as pricing. As I said, we've been around since 1991, and back in the day, we had the old hand tee sheet doing that kind of thing, and the business has changed dramatically now. We don't get as many calls where people would call a golf course for a reservation. It's more people look online and check really what's Golf Now. Golf Now is the predominant golf club point-of-sale system in the nation, and we've sort of bought into that full bore, and that's what we go with. Update our VIP season pass program. Early commitments for leagues, tournaments, and outings. Hopefully, as soon as if we get selected, we'll do everything we can to try to get leagues and outings over to Hilltop. In fact, Jim has said already we're getting calls for outings, and already we have dates that are booked. And having this as one of our inventory as a golf course, we can move some of those outings, hopefully, over to Plymouth Township, over to Hilltop, and move some of those outings with us, some of those leagues, all the stuff that, all the events, all the play that we have at Cattails that on some days are booked, we can move over to Hilltop. Let's go with the next page. With the clubhouse, if we get selected, we'll go ahead and take an inventory. If it needs a fresh coat of paint, cleaning, maintenance, we will take care of all of that. One thing we noticed with the clubhouse, our goal is going to be driving increase in outings and leagues. Try to take the weather out of play as much as possible. That's been our MO for 27 years. Try to get the leagues and outings, which will play at almost any weather, normal weather conditions, and then whatever's available, leave that up to open play. And with that in mind, looking at that clubhouse, we're probably going to have to reduce the scope of the pro shop and add more seating as a result, which really that clubhouse is almost a smaller mirror image of our Cattails clubhouse. At Cattails, we have our bar, which is our point of sale most of the time. Everybody comes up to the bar, whether to order a food or a drink or come in and check in for their play. So we're trying to get cattails as efficiently as possible, and with that, instead of having a pro shop and a grill, we try to run everything through the grill in order just to try to run it as tight as possible. And then you can see through there, as we do with the total sports side, we will do all of the preventive maintenance for the clubhouse. We will provide all the menu for the grill. We will do an internal plan for events, an external plan for events. So what we do at the golf course, internal, external, meaning that internal, we do a lot of in-house events. We have an event called the Spooky that's right around Halloween. Actually, it's literally the day before we aerate the greens. We do a one-man scramble, believe it or not. We do a red, white, and blue outing on July 4th. So we do a lot of things that are in-house to try to drive revenue, try to drive play. Externally, as I keep preaching here, we do a lot to try to push outings and leagues over to the golf course as much as possible. Next page. This is probably the most important. We believe, and our golf course is built on about 160 acres, and it's 9 holes on wetlands and 9 holes in woods. So we're very, very familiar with playability. Our golf course has some dog legs, it has some toughness to it. So as a result, we've done everything we can to make the course as much as playable as possible. And playable, I also mean, hopefully people can, the enjoyability factor, and that's 2 things. That's making the course playable and pace of play. So with that all in mind, that's how we sort of develop some of these items. Number 1, develop a weekly, monthly plan for updates, improvements, and regular maintenance of the golf course. We're basically going to take our protocols and procedures that we do at Cattails and parlay them over the hilltop. So Doug has a regular pesticides and fertilizer applications that he does on a weekly or monthly basis, whatever is specific to that application, and we just do that religiously all the way through. Hire and train maintenance crew for seasonal operation. As I said, we do that at the golf course at Cattails. For our entire group, as Doug has done with Jim, we'll communicate daily and even weekly what's going on the golf course. If there is an application being applied on the golf course, if there's a tree trimming, if we have to close a green, if there's a temporary green, all those kind of things that occur to keep the course in the greatest shape that we can keep it in, that's what we'll do. And as I say all of this, keep in mind, golf is in a tough spot. So fortunately or unfortunately, these guys have really lived within a very, very tight budget for a long time. We've lived through the heydays there in the 90s of Tiger Woods and golf, and we've also lived through the bad days or the tough days of the recession, depression for us. So as a result of all of that, we're quite familiar, unfortunately, in running a tight golf course. One of the things that we've noticed, or we for sure, 2 of the things we'd want to double check on the course is evaluate the drainage and sprinkler system. With that, if there's a way to repair that, we'll try to do the repair in-house, but we can touch on that later on in the discussion. And then just as important are the trees. We play the golf course, and it's quite obvious that the trees have not been trimmed or adjusted, whatever term you want to use, in a long time. So we would try to take an inventory of the trees. Number 1, as we do at Cattails, because we have a lot of trees, is try to remove limbs and or trees that are dangerous, that could fall or could harm somebody. And then going backwards from there, what trees impact the playability of the hole? Do they have to be removed? Do they have to be trimmed? Whatever the case may be, we would take a look at that, all with the goal of trying to make the course more playable and enjoyable for folks. That would be the whole reasoning for that. All right, next page. I sort of laid it out in the overall proposal, but we're looking to estimate somewhere about $25,000 that we would put into the golf course right off the bat. And that's from all things of adding some kitchen equipment in order to do event food and catering a little bit better, or at least utilize the menu that we use at Cattails over at Plymouth. Possibly adding an extra fairway mower. So once again, if we're going to have a golf outing, we got to make sure that greens and fairways are mowed. And I think when we did the walkthrough, we thought maybe there were 1 fairway short. At the golf course, we might have 1 fairway mower extra that we could maybe utilize at the golf course. On that list, We also included adding I'm not sure if the computer system would stay or not, but if it doesn't, we would add at least a couple of computer systems to the facility. We would utilize the Golf Now system in order to try to generate as much revenue and as much exposure as possible to Hilltop. Also with that, we would look to add, as we've done this year, there's a hole-in-one option now that we have at the golf course where if you come out and play, believe it or not, one of our holes is automatically covered for a $1,000 hole-in-one. That's all done by computer system. It's done by third party, but we would implement that. And then if the golfers would like to add, I think it's $5, they have an opportunity for $5,000, 10 grand, and if they put $10, $20,000. So we would do, once again, the enjoyability factor, all that kind of thing. We would do those kind of things to try to get folks out there and just to let them know that, hey, it's a different group that's managing this golf course. This is who we are. This is the kind of stuff that we do. Next page. This is a little bit different. This is more from the total sports side, what we're used to is we would request a management fee of $70,000 on an annual basis. And for that, nuts and bolts, we will run the golf course. We will pay the expenses. We will garner the revenues. We will take on the golf course as if it was our business. And hopefully, as I've laid out, it would generate some positive income and would get above break even, and then we would split that as a 50-50 basis between us and the township. God forbid if it doesn't, we would cover that loss.
Now, when you say expenses, you mean you do your own fertilizing or you contract it out?
No, we do it ourselves.
You do it yourself with your own equipment. And who pays the bill?
We would.
You buy the raw material?
Correct. So we would operate it as our business. So you could look at that $70,000. I think I termed it in the agreement as a land lease, however you want to term it. But basically, we would have the ability to run the business as we do. Next page. This sort of lays out what I threw out in the very beginning about how we have to work together between the business side of it and the golf course side of it. If we don't improve the golf course, we're not going to improve the business side of it. And taking the practices that Doug has been doing with us for 27 years, I think we're on the right track to make that happen. In fact, if you look back, whoever is a golfer in here, if you look back 3-4 years ago, we had that horrible winter. Our greens came through unscathed. We flourished in the spring. All sorts of golf courses, public, municipality, private, for profit, whatever the case may be, they came out in a tough spot. Doug, thank goodness, through the way that we managed the golf course, as I said, we flourished that spring all the way through to June until the other golf courses had a chance to grow in and catch up.
Was that 2014 winter you're talking about?
Was that 24? Yep.
So do you, I see their clients, your client includes Cattails Golf Course in South Lyon. So do you have an agreement with the community, or are you a private operator located within the community?
We're private, Kurt.
Okay.
For profit.
All right. So you have no relationship with the community of South Lyon?
We don't on the golf
standpoint.
course side. On the total sports side,
That's
I don't know if
different.
you're angling it towards, but we do operate the outdoor soccer fields at Lion
Right.
Oaks
Okay.
for the county.
Okay.
And then really, this is the part that we can maybe just go through. This is who we are at ADM Ventures. I sort of touched on the very beginning about how many square feet we have under management, all the 2.5 million visitors that we have, all the good stuff we got going on at Total Sports and Cattails Golf Club. Really, if you
Is Cattails, I don't know why I think this, is it being sold?
It is.
All right.
It's
You are one of the owners? That's
correct.
All right.
Really, that's it in the nuts and bolts. The rest of it is just same stuff that we can find in the proposal. So I'll open it up to Q&A.
So you, come spring 2019, you will not be operating Cattails.
We're going through that process. I would say for 2019, we probably will be operating Cattails, but 2020, we probably will not be. As if anybody's been through some land sales and at large of a scale, there's usually a 6-month to a 12-month due diligence. If we sell it to a developer, they're going to have a 6-month look at it, and then it goes down the line. Just as they do here, they're going to have to go through the township and get the approvals and entitlements and all that.
So they're
good
going to
stuff.
build houses on that property?
More than likely.
And that's no reflection on your business operations. It's just they want to take it in a different direction, or it's more money for the township or the city, or what?
No, remember, it's our golf course.
So you're
Yeah.
selling it.
So we're selling it. Our original intent was always to run it as a golf course in order to someday sell it as property, almost like you do with a driving range at a corner of a
Right.
lot. So land speculation. Unfortunately, what's driving it now is my brother has some health issues, and as a result, with that, along with what's going on in the marketplace, if you've driven down 10 Mile in Lyon Township, now's the time kind of thing.
Okay. So you see this as your next opportunity?
I do, Kurt, really because of these two guys. We could sell the golf course right now and be done with it. I could focus 100% in Total Sports. Jim works for us at Total, Doug does also. We could just be driving into that. But because me and us, we have such a passion for golf, this opportunity occurred. These guys are great at running the golf course. You put that whole thing together. If this opportunity works out, it'll be a blessing. This will be awesome.
Tony, can you give me a sense of your total revenue? What percentage of that is generated by leagues and outings and food and beverage? And it's kind of a leading question because at Hillcrest today, we don't generate a lot of revenue from leagues or outings or food and beverage. It's a very small percentage, which, how do you go about generating league activity, outing activity, and getting people to buy burgers and beers after rounds?
Training of the staff, social media, as Jim has said, mining our database. So not only do you send out an email, but you follow up with a call. We've been really lucky with Total Sports. Just imagine all the travel organizations that do all those fundraisers, and a lot of them are golf outings. Well, we're able to tap into that through Total, and we would do the same with Hilltop. I would put Hilltop as a sponsor through Total Sports, and we would try to tap into all those clubs doing all that travel, all that kind of stuff. And then leagues, it's really just, getting on the phone and making it happen. Leagues are tough because the golf business is a tough business. So a league, to get a league to leave a golf course to come to another golf course is hard. There's a lot of negotiation, a lot of discussion to make that happen. Fortunately, in this case, if Cattails goes here in a year or two, those leagues, because we're only 15, 20 minutes away, there's a good chance there that we're going to hopefully move them over to Hilltop. We'd like to. The only reason it wouldn't be would be the drivability or wherever those leagues are coming from, or else I think we can garner a lot of those leagues.
Does the clubhouse currently have the facilities and equipment necessary to, improve the menu? I mean, there's basically just a grill, right?
I've tried over the years so many different things. It's still, people come to the golf course, they want a good burger and a beer. So we can handle that, I think, with the equipment that's there. My concern is, in the proposal I laid out in Altosham, or Cresco it's called, is the larger things, where you do a family picnic or you do a chicken or a ribs. I don't think the equipment, I know the equipment is not there, but we can provide that. We would do that because you want to drive as much business as you can over there, but then you also want to service the business properly. And not higher end, but golf outings that are going to pay a little bit more are going to want more than just burgers, hot dogs, kielbasa kind of stuff. They're going to want some kind of chicken dinner. So we would add that.
That facility right now, the clubhouse, is just not up to standards that I think you would be able to attract and retain leagues and regular customers on a regular basis. It's pretty bare bones. I know you've toured it, and it needs a lot of work.
It is, Kurt. As I said, the pro shop, for whatever reason, encompasses, we'll call it maybe a quarter of it or a third of it. I would greatly reduce it. You can't compete with Carl's down the road and the internet. So we would have golf balls, golf gloves, tees, those kind of things that you need because you need some golf balls. Maybe a few shirts. If you go to the Cattails right now, there's one rack that has some golf shirts because I'm driving from work and somebody needs a shirt. It's very minimal. the thing you need to do, as you're sort of insinuating, is you need to make that a desirable place to hang out after your league, have the right tables and chairs and equipment and stuff to sort of fulfill a golf outing. That's where you make the revenue.
Would your guys do that, or would you partner with a restaurateur of some sort?
No, we would do that.
Okay.
The gym serves safe. We have multiple people at Total Sports that are served safe, so we can, and I think that's Oakland County served safe, but I would make sure that we would have somebody that's qualified to run the food and beverage.
What would you do with the existing fleet of golf carts that we own?
So you own the golf carts. We would probably utilize those golf carts for the first year to get our feet wet with them. I know they're gas carts. We probably would add, I think you have 55 carts or 56?
54, I think.
54. So we would add 15 to 20 golf carts. At Cattails, we've gone from 75 to 78. I'm not sure what we have right now. But they're all electric at Cattails. But our course is a lot flatter than Hilltop. So Doug and I touched on this a little while ago. I'm not sure if our electric carts, they're 4 years old, would be able to handle the hills up and down. Or typically in a golf cart when they're brand new, you can get 2 18-hole rounds and then some. Our batteries are getting older and older. I'm not sure if they could hold their charge. So I would go with the gas carts to start and then supplement with about an extra 15 to 20 carts just to be safe.
Our carts were purchased in what, 2011? Is that what you said earlier? So just to let you know, they were purchased in 2011. I don't know. I think they've, according to the current operator, I think they may have 2 more years of useful life. You guys know more than I do about that, but we just want to let you know.
They're gas carts. We've always had electric carts just because of the fact that we're a flatter course and we charge a little bit higher. But like we do with a lot of our equipment, we can make that run for a long, long time.
Do your carts have things like GPS and some of the other new?
We used to.
bells and
So at
whistles?
Cattails there, help me, Doug, pre-recession, pre-2000, we had uplink system, it was called, then was GPS. So for a long time, we were one of the few golf courses that had GPS screen on the carts.
Right.
It would tell you yardages to the front of the green, middle of the green, back of the green, to over a bunker. We had specific places where it would tell you yardage. But the most important thing was us in the clubhouse. I saw where all the carts are on the clubhouse and the golf course. If somebody was slow, the polite message, please catch up to the group ahead of you. You need to increase, all those kind of things. The yardage wouldn't work until you hit click and then you read it. But unfortunately, when the recession hit, that was one of the things we had to cut out. So we don't have the uplink anymore. You're right. So one of the things with Golf Now is when they do the website, they also have a mobile application of your website that you can utilize on your phone or your iPad. With that, has a layout of the golf course with GPS, and I think it's really utilizing Google Maps, but it shows you and the golf course. So you do get yardage on the Golf Now app that we do. But as I said, back in the day, it was nice having the management tool.
Have you given any thought to a driving range on site or nearby?
So we have a driving range at Cattails. I understand a long time ago there was a driving range across the road. Was it a long, long time ago?
I don't think so.
No? Okay.
I don't ever recall a driving range there.
No, across the way?
The so-called triangle property?
Yeah.
Would that be suitable for a driving range?
It could. As I said, we're going to be a partner, and if that's something that we being being the management group and the township wants to look at, we can look at it. We have one at Cattails, but there's a lot of golf courses that don't. There's a lot of golf courses that have what we have sort of at Total Sports, where you have just a long net and you have maybe about 5 or 10 stations where people go there and just warm up and then go out and play. It's not necessarily a driving range. It's more just to get warmed up.
But it would require large netting in that general area.
No, I'm sorry. What I mean, Kurt, is not like what you would see at Carl's with the big.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking.
Yeah, no, it's more almost we'll call it a 12 by 12 cube, and they have them lined up, and you're just in there just warming up just so you don't pull something. As you get older, you're trying to.
But you could, the net, theoretically, you could have one of those in your backyard.
Correct, but the difference is this is enclosed, so hopefully you don't hit anybody else.
Could I make money off of that?
No, not that one. No, I don't think you can charge
Off
just
the
to get
list.
hit.
Forget it then.
No, not just to charge it to the net.
Can you go back to the financial proposal? I think basically what you're proposing is taking the risk off of Plymouth Township and putting on you for operating expenses.
Correct.
To me, that's a little, there are some gray areas there. You know, there's day-to-day operations, and then there's capital investments. And then there's the gray areas, like, you know, what if you have to take down 10 trees? Would that be a capital expense? Would that be an operating expense? Or if you have to patch the cart pass, is that an operating expense or is that a capital expense? What is your thought on where you're drawing that line between where we would take responsibility for capital expenditures versus what you would take responsibility for operating expenditures?
You're absolutely right, Marcus. So we touched on that too, and the way I assimilated that was how we are at Total Sports. We have some buildings where we are responsible for the parking lot. We have some where we are not. Most of the leases or the partnerships that we have, something massive happens to that building, it's the landlord's responsibility because that building is theirs, it stays on the property. If it's replacing or repairing the furnace or repairing the air conditioner or doing paint inside or fixing the plumbing, that falls on us as the tenant to do the repairs. So we would just have to go through that and decide how to do that. I think long-term, and touching on Paul's group, if it does turn into a 9-hole golf course with a driving range, I'd like some input. I'd like input from Paul. I'd like to have input from the town. What trees should we do? Or maybe we should hold off. Or maybe we should only spend this much for this year because we're not sure what's going to happen down the road. I'd hate to throw good money on something that could entirely change in a year or two. You know, off the top of my head right here, probably repairing the cart pass would be us, because that's part of the day-to-day business. Maybe trimming some trees and stuff, we could share in that, because that is going to improve the business, but that's going to stay on the property too, so maybe there's a way to share that.
Traditionally, the irrigation pump was our responsibility in the past. But we have to determine what kind of maintenance would have to be done on that.
Right. And just to clarify, we have, to help tell me if I'm wrong, Doug, we have 2 pumps. We have a major, the prime pump.
We weren't allowed, we weren't given access to the pump house. You couldn't assess that when we came into it. But as you know, so we like access to that to see.
In all the years we take care of the pump house on our golf course, we open it up in the spring, close it in the fall. Unfortunately, with 27 years, we've had some major repairs that we've had to do, but we've done it all. Working with a tight budget, once again, Doug's able to reach out to FAR and get parts at a discount, and we're able to bring them in. And sometimes we do the repairs in-house, and sometimes we call a third party to come in and do the repair. So we've done it every which way.
So you've seen our financials.
Yep.
You see that we're losing roughly $70,000 a year in operating expenses. Why do you feel comfortable proposing that you would eat any loss? Or why do you feel comfortable that you could turn this into a profitable operation?
It's my team, Mark, and then it starts from there. If you look, now we only looked at 2000, well, not only, but the latest numbers that we had were 2017. 2017, off the top of my head, I think gross revenues were 505. Hopefully that stayed the same or close to it for 2018. That was the worst year. Okay, so that's even better, because then I pumped in a 10% increase. And there's so many different ways to get to that and hopefully past that. One of the things we looked at is taking into account 75 or 80% of the use of the golf course is used by residents, or non-residents, people outside of the township. Maybe there's an opportunity there to increase rates $1 or $2. With that in mind, if you did the math, it's about 16,000 rounds at an extra $1 or $2. There's $32,000 right there. So per my numbers, that's an extra 20 that we have to come up with. Gosh, if we just get 4 outings with 80 people per outing, we'll exceed that, not even counting all the leagues that we can add to it. So I think I've set the numbers up that it's very attainable to match.
So leagues are pivotal to your profitability plan.
You know, they've been ever since the beginning we opened up. We always looked at trying to fill the golf course with leagues and outings as a result to move the weather as least impactful on the business as possible.
Do league play is paid up front, right? Revenue?
We do it a different way. We do, for instance, if it's a 20-week league, we pay half is due on the first day, and then the remaining half is due 4 weeks later. So we try to get ahead. And then outings, we have pay the day of.
So if it rains, there's no refund for leagues?
There's no refund, but once again, being the customer service side, we would allow, I think we do one or two, at least two, where they can push back. Typically, leagues end at the end of August, beginning of September. So if there is a rain out as a result, we'll push it back a week or two. We'll do everything we can, and at the very worst, if we have to give a refund, we will. But we haven't done that very often. It's usually because the leagues get done soon enough, we're able to add some dates at the very end.
One of the other questions that's come up is your flexibility to open the course for other non-golf events or sports like foot golf or cross-country skiing, things like that. I mean, is that something that you'd be comfortable with?
That falls on the total sport, absolutely. I mean, whatever we can do on that piece of property to generate revenue, as long as it falls within the realm of our agreement that it's okayed by the township, we're all for it. As I said, from the total sports side, that's the way we operate. At Cattails, we haven't operated that way because we're a little bit off the beaten path. We've talked about cross-country, we've talked about some stuff, but we really haven't done it.
How do you, when you're looking at the revenue model, there's only so many time slots you can sell.
Right.
Right? And there's only so much price elasticity given the level of the course. What do you think, I mean, if that thing were operating on all four cylinders and you were filling all the prime slots and you were filling 9 non-prime slots at, at the rate that would be expected, say in the area, that sort of thing.
Sure.
What do you think the maximum amount of revenue that course could generate?
Well,
you must have did that math.
Oh, yeah. Well, obviously, I can just tell you what we do at at Cattails. Cattails is an 18-hole golf course, a little bit longer than what Hilltop is, but it hasn't been around since we've only been around since 1991. One of the things, before I answer that question is, when I said that the rate increase, I live in Troy. Sylvan Glen is a public golf course that happens to be run by Billy Casper. They're about $4 higher than Hilltop is. And I don't see too much difference. And actually, if we get the opportunity and trim back some of the trees and bring the golf course to the condition we think we can do, it would be probably even a little bit better than Sylvan Glen because Sylvan's pretty flat. This is obviously Hilltop. It's very hilly. I think we can get an extra $1 or $2 without a blink of an eye. As I said, non-residents. I think we keep the residents as is. Answering your question, really point blank because what we got going on with Cattails, I think you could look at almost 7 figures. We're almost touching 7 figures right now at Cattails, just with outdoor golf, not including the simulators and the stuff we do inside. So 18 holes golf course, our rates are probably a little bit higher than what we have at Hilltop right now. So if you take 20% off of that, maybe 10% off of that, that would give you an overall number. That's what we do. I can show you the history.
Would you consider construction of an additional building on site for some of the other simulators and golf-related?
I wouldn't do simulators, Kurt, unless, although it's similar to Cattails, maybe I would. But as far as doing outings, I would look at a seasonal tent. I look at some of the club houses that have been built recently for profit, for municipalities. They have about the size of the clubhouses at Hilltop, but then they add a covered rooftop, so it's a hard structure. But they also have, some of them have these seasonal canopies, and that's what I think we would try to look at Hilltop, is adding a tent out there to try to accommodate 100 or 120. I think with the reshuffling of the clubhouse, we can get close to 100 in there with long table seating. But if, God willing, we're doing very well and we have to add space, that was the thought.
I have said publicly, sometimes facetiously, that I would be happy to hire an operator who would be able to keep their profits as long as I'm not having to contribute and subsidize the operation. I mean, your offer to share profits with us is very intriguing. It's more than what I've, more than what I would like.
You're not a very good negotiator.
I'll certainly take it, yeah. but I'll certainly take it. But it's, we really, our situation is such that we would, I would just like to stop subsidizing it. And I still have, as talking with Mark, we have this $500,000 loan that I think is pretty uncollectible at this point. And we were just talking about how we would deal with that debt, if you will, going forward. And that's not your problem right now, but your proposal is very, very intriguing, to say the least. Some might say it sounds too good to be true.
I said that before we spoke.
Yeah.
Okay, wait. Let's talk about the last line up on that page up there.
Yep.
We're going to transfer our liquor license to you. Okay? Why would we do that?
In order to do the leagues and the golf outings, we have to utilize a liquor license to sell those beverages.
Right now, we own the liquor license, and Billy Casper uses it, right?
Right.
Is that how it is? Okay.
So why couldn't we keep that relationship with you?
That's what I meant. I'm sorry. That's what I meant by transfer. Absolutely.
But the ownership would retain
Would
by
stay
Plymouth
the
Township.
townships. Yes.
Right
100%.
now,
That's what you're getting at.
Absolutely.
Because potentially we're giving you a $50,000 liquor license.
Yeah, no, I
That's what his point
apologize.
is.
Yes.
And the first time you sell to a underage kid and lose
Yeah.
the license, basically everything goes out the window.
And just to touch on that, all of our servers go through tips training. So we do that.
What's it
to
called?
Hopefully reduce that.
All right, I feel better with you.
What kind of training?
Tips training, that's just to prevent hopefully overconsumption. So all the servers go through the training of what are the signs that somebody's being overserved and how to stop it and the protocols and the procedures. No problem.
Any other questions from the board?
You know, one thing, Kurt, to touch on when you said it's too good, maybe too good to be true, keep in mind, I did mention that when we split profits, and hopefully there are profits here, some of that money can go back into the golf course.
Oh, yeah, I'm not,
In the form of capital improvements.
Exactly. Exactly. Help us with the tree trimming. If let's say we set up a 5-year plan that we're going to apply so much per year, then we'll look at that kind of help.
What about time? Let's talk about timing. When is the optimum time to make a decision to allow preparation for the spring?
Yeah.
Yesterday, right?
Well,
could you walk into, our current contract with Billy Casper expires at the end of March of 2019. Would you be able to at what point could you take the keys and walk in and at least start running it for the spring?
As Jim said, we could literally start on Monday. As we were talking about outings and leagues, the more advanced that we have, the better chance we have to sell those outing and leagues in the beginning of the summer. Even if we get into it in January, February, then that shifts forward maybe to August and September, which we do a fantastic job. If you look at our September weekends, we are jammed with outings. So it still offers the ability to do that. But from our side, as Jim said yesterday, it would be great to be on that golf course because, tell me if I'm wrong, Doug, when the ground freezes, that would be our best time to drive out on the golf course. If you got to trim some trees, do some work on the golf course, that's the minimal damage that's going to occur at the course is when the ground is frozen.
So if ADM takes over in March, it will be a disadvantage because they can't sell the outings and the leagues. You can't do as much pre-sale, and you can't do as much preparation.
Correct.
So if we decide to change operators, we may have to negotiate when the start time is and the exit time and all of that. That might have to be negotiated to an optimum so that we don't start off, if we switch, at a deficit. Here it is, by the time you guys catch your breath, it's April 1.
Correct.
And then you've lost a lot of opportunity for leagues especially.
Well, they've lost opportunity, but you can make a deal with them anytime, starting right now, and then they can start their preparation. It's not, we don't have to wait till March 31st to make the deal. We can make the deal now.
Well, no, but I mean the actual operating.
Yeah, I understand that. It can't be till April 1, unless Billy Casper vacates.
You'd have to negotiate something
Well,
if you
they
did
may,
that.
or may not, I don't know. But people can vacate a,
Well, everything's negotiable both with you or with Billy Casper or whatever. That's,
But, thinking out loud, I think the most important thing is, let's say a decision does come here in November or December, knowing that we have the green light to try to pursue leagues and outings, that would be number one. And then if we have to hold our breath to April 1st, so be it. That's the way it is. That's the way it is. We can make that work. The kicker is trying to get the ability to sell the golf course ASAP, selling the leagues, the outings, let everybody know that, hey, we are now managing Hilltop. That's going to be the key.
So who would be there on a day-to-day basis?
Jim and Doug, both.
Okay. Anyone else? Then how many other groundskeepers, staff would you normally have?
We would probably follow the protocol at Cattails, so Doug would hire the crew per what we do we have 160 acres there at Cattails, 18 holes, so we would probably hire very similar kind of numbers there. In the clubhouse, maybe a little bit less staff. You are very compact there, so you may not need as many people as we do at Cattails, so we would just follow those kind of numbers.
How would you answer the comment that your competition is going to say, well, we manage golf courses all over the Midwest, and you guys just have one. So what makes you special? You're just better at it, or you have lower overhead, or what?
They're doing it for prep.
Question and answer it?
Thank you, Kurt. Once again, thank you.
Hey, I'm done here.
I think we bring experience on all fronts. It doesn't matter if you've owned one course or 50 golf courses. We've been around since '91. We know what it was when the Tiger Woods era took off and golf course was expanding and we were growing like crazy. And then we went through 2001 and all the way down to 7 and 8 when we lost about half of our revenue, while at the other 15 minutes away at Total Sports Wixom, we were flourishing. So we have seen both sides of those kind of businesses and what to do. And when things get bad, you cut out the GPS, you trim expenses, you try to grow. So we've lived the wars intimately, the three of us. And Billy Casper probably has too, but maybe not as intimate as we have.
so Kurt, this is for you potentially. What happens if they get into this and they found out it's too good to be true and they want to back out before the 5 years is out?
I think all of that would have to be reflected into the contract.
Correct.
I mean, I think the game plan would be we would have to select a management firm to run the course, subject to final approval of a contract that we would have to work with the successful bidder on. That doesn't guarantee that you're going to get the work. I mean, things could fall apart in contract negotiations. Right. I think what we should do is, no matter who we select, I think we're looking at a new contract no matter what. And I would just say that we put together some small team of individuals here on the board, which has been done in the past. I would volunteer Mr. Clinton and Bob Dorshevitz.
Yeah, me too.
Well, we can't have too many. Well,
No, I would volunteer those two.
oh, I would. Good. Yeah. Thank you. I concur. So, and myself, I got to be in on it, of course. So.
Because you're a big golfer.
Huh? I'm a huge golfer. Yeah. And we'd have to have Kevin Bennett close at hand.
For a foursome.
And he's a big golfer too, I think. Yes, you're in a league and everything. And I think we would have to work out that contract and expedite it, obviously. And if things, to answer Chuck's question, I mean, if things fall apart in those discussions, then no deal, Right. I mean, the RFP is pretty comprehensive. It's probably overdone because we patched together some other RFPs from other communities that are a lot bigger than us. But in the end, we're going to want to craft an agreement that truly reflects our needs and expectations and yours as well from us. And again, at the end of the day, it just boils down to money. I mean, we've got to be able to have this. We got to get out of the rut of subsidizing a golf course that our own data shows is not widely used by our residents. I mean, we're subsidizing this for out-of-town folks. Some will say that's fine. That's the nature of public recreation. I get that. But if we can operate, if we can work with a successful bidder to operate a course at a profit, again, wonderful. If we can break even and not have to subsidize, that's kind of a low-hanging fruit that I'd love to be able to accomplish, at least in the short term. And then we still have that $500,000 obligation out there that we have to either, we may have to write that off the books at some point. But, we'll have to deal with that one later.
For information, that $500,000 was an internal loan that the township made years ago to the golf course.
For improvements and,
Yes, for capital.
okay.
I have one question. What, if any, synergies do you expect from the total sports side of the business with a golf course?
I think a ton. The proof is in the pudding, as we've used at Cattails. Back in the day, it was hard to sell outings in September, but with Jim coming aboard and then digging into our total sports, as I said, a lot of those travel teams were able to have their outings in that September timeframe, and as a result, it became a 4-weekend of just outings. We would use that synergy big time, Chuck, because the way we have it set up is it's a benefit for us as it's a benefit for the township. So I would tap into all the assets I have to try to get that exposure out there.
Okay. Any other questions from the board? Anything from the public? Okay. Really good. Anything else you'd like to add?
We're excited. Hopefully we have an opportunity to do this. We're local. We're going to make this happen. I think we sort of touched the bases on multiple things that other folks may not. As I keep throwing out the total sports, we're able and we're willing to look at that if the township were to pivot to that. We would love to be on the forefront and help do that. At the same time, if it stays in an 18-hole golf course, and as we were going down this path with Cattails, I think that's another thing that separates us from the competitor. We're going to be able to push and drive a lot of that business over to township. Are we going to be able to do 100% of it? Of course not, but 20, 30, 40, 50% of that, I think that's legit. I think I looked at the tee sheet, the capacity is there, so we can make that happen.
Okay.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone.
All right. Thank you. And then we'll
Not the same as what total soccer was, right? That's different.
It is. Total Sports owns Total Soccer.
Oh, okay.
That's all us.
So we'll be in touch with you.
Great. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much. All right.
Oh, by the way, this is to repair the divots, right?
Yes.
Thanks for giving us that.
Did you get one?
Yeah. Little training of the golfers in etiquette, right?
Yeah. All righty. Let's move on. And guys, you can stick around if you want, but otherwise we're all set. So
Was Chuck the only one that got a gift here?
You might have forgot it was in there.
I thought
Didn't
mine was
notice
a glorified
A green
paper
piece
clip.
of wire. You thought it was a paper clip, right?
Yeah. All righty. Let's move on. All right, we're going to move on to item F4. This is a draft 2019 township budget discussion. We need Cindy, if possible.
Oh, while she's, well, I guess we do that in the comments. Well, maybe it's related to budget.
Got it. Yeah.
Would the township be okay
How
with
about water billing, cross-training? Has that been completed, or is there a plan in the budget to do it? So that the one person we've had, in case of absence or
Yeah.
transfer, we get our water bills out.
Well, the woman that was doing water, that was being trained, left. She went to the city of Dearborn for a better paying job. So we have a new lady in her position, and she is being trained both on water billing and also the other essential elements of the job in that position.
What was the name of the person who left? Were they new?
Katie Cobb is the person who, she was with us for about a year.
So that's in the works, and
Yeah, that's ongoing. I mean, she's being trained in everything right now in that department. Cindy Kushner. Okay, now we do not, the item that's being presented tonight is the pie chart and other associated stuff. That is not in the agenda. That's more of a handout for you guys tonight. So Mark prepared this, and
Could you bring that up, Bob?
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
is it in there? Okay. Hey, Sue, are we still on TV? Good.
Cindy, if you don't mind, I'll just run through these slides real quick.
Great.
Obviously, things have changed since last week when the millage was approved, and that's going to have some ramifications to the 2018 budget. So I just thought I'd walk you through a couple of these slides and then give you my recommendation on how we should spend that increased millage revenue. This is a slide that you've seen many times before, but just to reiterate, this, as we projected when we needed the increased millage, was the incremental spending that we were going to have on pension, OPEB, capital, and staffing and related costs. And as you can see, these costs go up over time to the year 2023. All of these blue graphs equate to about $36 million in incremental public safety spending in those four areas over 2018, which is how we eventually came up with the millage recommendation that we did. So keep that in mind. And Bob, if you switch to the next slide, here's a different way to look at it. This is very important. Okay, that line shows the incremental expenses, and then that line across at roughly 2.1 million shows the incremental revenue that we will bring in as a result of the millage. We don't need all of that money up front. Those expenses increase over time, the pensions, the OPEB, et cetera, et cetera. So you can see it's very important that we start putting money aside today and over the next 5 years into a trust, because that money that we set aside today and over the next 5 years is going to pay our future costs that take place in the year 25, 26, up through 30. So we can't take this money and say, yay, we got a bunch of new money. We have to start being smart with our long-term finances and setting that money aside in the trust so it's there when we need it in future years. I think this slide does a pretty good job of representing that, okay? So next slide, Bob. So I want to talk about those four components that we've always talked about: OPEB, pension, capital, and then staffing and related costs. This is what we've talked about in terms of capital expenditures for next year. And this list should look familiar because it's the list that Cindy has shared with us. But on the left are the capital requests for public safety. And they include a new truck, an ambulance and the related equipment, some repairs to Fire Station 2 for the drainage and the floors, and then all the dispatch equipment, the new stations, the new software, the Viper software, et cetera. All of those capital requests come up to $1,380,000. We've been able to offset a lot of those expense requests on the right side because we got a grant for the truck, we got a grant for the Viper system, and we sold that cell tower for $400,000. So all of those add up to $1 million. So the net of that is that we need $380,000 of incremental capital expenses in order to fund those capital requests, okay?
And those capital requests do not reflect everything that was on the wish list. There's a vehicle request for the inspector, which we are deferring, and there were a couple other more minor items, but you know, it's not that everybody got what they wanted now.
So this final pie chart shows my recommendation on how we should spend that $2.1 million that will come in as a result of the millage. I already went through the capital expenditures. That's $380,000. The pension, and by the way, this is already reflected in Cindy's budget. I haven't changed these numbers. The incremental pension, this is, you see that acceleration of the pension, the billings that we're going to get from MERS. That will result in about $240,000. The staffing and related costs, again, this is already in Cindy's budget, but it reflects the staffing levels now for 30 with the police, 24 for the firefighters, et cetera, and that new supervisor for dispatch. The leftover, which is $1.2 million, my recommendation, going back to that slide, is we put it into a trust and we let it grow and we make sure that it's there when we need it, come the years 20, 24, 25, et cetera. So this would be my recommendation. That left side of the pie chart is already reflected in Cindy's budget. The right side of 1.2 million, let's put that aside into an OPEB trust.
And then to clarify, staffing and related would include also maintenance, building maintenance, things like that.
What building maintenance, in addition to the 60,000 that's in here for capital?
Well, I believe that one of the things we'd like to see now is a building maintenance fund for public safety, for general government facilities, and for DPW.
So that's capital, that's not staffing.
Well, and that's why I'm trying to define that.
That's not labeled correctly then.
Well, and that's why I'm trying to define that. So I just want to clarify that with you.
Yeah, no, this is specifically the staffing and related would be salaries, fringe benefits.
Okay.
So variable
Social
costs.
Security, et cetera, yeah. I mean, if we want to take a look at that capital equipment line and start setting money.
Staffing related is what we've already budgeted.
We have already budgeted that, correct.
Okay. All right.
So, well, let's get back to the putting a sinking fund or a capital improvement fund. We need to go through that in good detail because we don't want to bank too much money. We need to be careful that we try to project it, but the 60,000.
And I think that would be a good project for next year. I mean, that can be done via a budget amendment. I've asked the chiefs to come up with a long-term capital improvement plan for their departments. I'm sure the fire chief has already got one, but we'd like to see something projected out over the next 10 years and have that ready for us by maybe the beginning of March.
So
Why would it take that long?
Why would it take that long? Yeah. Well, I mean, we can have it done before that, but just wanted them to make sure it's
well,
thoughtful.
it'll take some contemplative study to make it accurate.
Yeah.
Not just a guess.
Yeah, I agree.
Well, I would say as soon as possible rather than
Why the hurry?
5 months or 4 months. I have a question here. It's late, so I may be past the point of fatigue.
No, ask your questions because I'm going to have a lot of discussion. So,
So I get the 380, which is the incremental that we didn't have in the budget, that these new funds can come in and provide for, and the 1.2 million that would go into the existing, now created trust fund from the last meeting. But you say the pension and the staffing are already in the budget.
They're already in the budget. Now, what would happen is if the millage had not passed and we had kept them in the budget, then we would have to take that out of our general fund balance. But instead, the millage will replenish and keep the general fund balance where it is, and we could still put 1.2 million aside in an OPEB trust.
I would need to see that detail because again, it's late. My understanding was that we had a budget in front of us that assumed no millage approval and that ended up with a surplus, a break even, basically. So I'm losing something here in translation.
you're right. That's what was in there.
Okay.
So what he just said was we would dip into our bank account to make the base budget if the millage didn't pass.
Correct. If you look at everything but the OPEB trust, it adds up to $900,000. Those items worth $900,000 were in the 2019 budget. If the millage hadn't passed, next year we would have had expenses in excess of revenues of $1,234,000. But because the millage passed, that $900,000 can be used for those three items, and our expenses over revenue next year will only be $346,000. We still will be operating in the red, mostly because of other capital expenditures. But that $900,000 from the millage is going to reduce that expense over revenue and therefore preserve our fund balance at about 25% of expenditures, which is where we want to be. 3 months' worth of expenditures is
I don't think we want to deficit spend this year,
in 2019.
2019. We got to think about that.
A lot of it, Chuck, is timing. You really have to look at 2018 and 2019
Together.
combined. For example, we're going to get $200,000 for the fire truck grant. That goes in 2018, but then we spend it in 2019. Similarly, with the sale of the cell tower, we get the money this year, but we spend it next year. So you can't look at it just in 2019. You've got to look at the events and almost look at it in total. With this, and correct me if I'm wrong, Cindy, if you combine 2018 and 2019, we'll be in the black with those 2 years combined.
Correct.
And we're not at full staffing for the fire department. Those 3 firemen are not hired.
What date do you expect those to be on board, full staffing?
Hopefully before the end of the year.
So that's 2018 budget, or
2019.
Process. You may not be hitting the budget until 2019.
If I can interject, those firefighters were approved to be hired in July. So they are in the 2018 budget. We have not hired them as of
when are they actually going to report for work?
Probably not till the end of the year.
Probably at the very earliest, the end of the year.
So in the budget adjustments that are going to be coming to you soon, the salaries and benefits of those 3 firefighters will be taken out of the 2018 budget.
You're going to make an adjustment after the end of the year?
We're going to make those, and I'm going to have them for your approval December 11th.
All right, so it'll be before the end of the year
Yes,
to meet the auditing requirements.
correct.
Okay, so I'm looking back at what you handed out, I guess, at the last prior meeting, and I do see that there's a $1.234 million 2019 negative, and then you had projected for 18 an $861,000 surplus. Does that sound right?
Yeah, that surplus is now going to be up to about 1.1 million.
Okay.
So that's what Mark was talking about. If you combine that with the loss from 2019, you'll be in the black. You have to really look at those 2 years together.
Right. They almost cancel each other out without this additional revenue.
Correct.
Okay. Well, so I still wonder why. I certainly agree with the OPEB trust fund and the capital, but now that it's 10 o'clock, I'm getting even more tired. I'm not sure I understand the other 2 parts of this, so we'll have to work through that.
You're welcome to stop by, send an email, call.
So I have a question about how are we going to pay for the ambulance? We're going to pay cash or are we going to finance?
My recommendation in this scenario is to pay cash for the ambulance, for the first ambulance. Going forward, that would not be my recommendation. My recommendation would be spread those expenses over 5 to 8 years, which would allow us to put more money into the trust during those first 5 to 8 years.
All right, so let's talk more about the trust. When can we start working on an optimization plan for these benefits, which are all over the map? We know it's a patchwork. I think there's savings there. And the taxpayers have come forward with their share. Now it's our job to optimize, make sure we're not overpaying on benefits, and I think we are. So, because many people are in different plans. Comes back to the old, they're not, we have the plan for the active employees, and the retirees are different. We're paying Part B for some people. we're paying life insurance for some people. It's a very, very mixed bag.
And many of their copays are
All over.
inequitable as well. I
Yeah.
mean, some copays are more than others. It's unequal on both sides of the ledger. I mean, we've already accomplished this with our regular active full-time employees, saved about $55,000, $60,000 in healthcare costs. We did that without any formal union negotiations or anything of the sort, so that was unprecedented because the employees understood that we had to be more efficient, and they were willing to help us in that request. With respect to the retiree health care, we identified this as an issue early 2017 because we had retirees who were coming to us saying, why am I paying more than this guy? Why am I getting a different level of coverage than that guy? That's something that we'd like to reopen. We had other priorities first. Now that we have financial stability, we have the ability to take a much deeper look at all of these benefits that are being provided to the retirees and how can we optimize cost on our side, on their side, again, without, my goal is not to diminish the level of benefit that they have received, That's what we were able to accomplish with the regular full-time employees. We met with them, we talked to them, we had several meetings with all the union reps, and they understood that they were getting as good or better coverage for a lower cost for us. And we would hope to do the same thing with the retirees.
Well, the part that I want to understand is, I'm totally confused on this, is when our employees turn 65 years old, what do we do with a premium when they get on Medicare? I don't know, and I'd like somebody to eventually explain it clearly in writing, what we're doing when they turn 65. I have the feeling we're paying the full amount past 65 for some employees. In other words, there's no reduction when they're on Medicare, but I don't know.
Why would you think that?
Because I've seen the list. It's this huge list, and it looks like in some cases we might, but I'm not smart enough to know. And now we have a new company that's managing our health care. They're probably pretty smart to be able to figure it out. Not our health care, they're managing our HR and health care. They've seen a lot of things in a lot of different communities.
I like that. Yeah.
But we need to move on this as I think it should be one of our goals for next year.
No, I think that's fair. And I think your statement was correct. The taxpayers have footed part of this bill, and we've got to dig a little deeper to figure out how we can start saving money on the expense side as well.
Well, on the other side, too, is we should be looking at additional benefits that we can give police and fire, that training and things like that we've maybe not given so quickly over the last couple of years.
Well, a lot of those benefits hopefully can be synergistic with surrounding communities and Schoolcraft College, and we need to
Absolutely.
have a lot more intergovernmental cooperation again.
Yes.
And training is one of the easiest ways to do it. We've done it in the past, and I think these guys have organized some already, but we need to be really thinking a lot more regionally than we have, as our neighbors don't think that way either, because everybody's feeling wealthy again. So I have more to talk about, but on the budget, do we want to, you guys go first, and then or maybe everybody's sleepy bear.
Go ahead.
Cindy, you said we're losing $140,000 a year on the senior transportation. That should be one of our priorities to go after. Fewer than 100 residents use that. And we were just talking about subsidizing the golf course for $70,000 a year. And we're subsidizing 100 people for $140,000 a year. So we need to figure out whether we need to analyze that, if it's true.
Cindy, I thought the number was closer to 50,000.
In your office, you told me 140 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, no, that's when you include, the $50,000 is the township's portion. The rest of it is the city's portion.
Yeah, but it's still
Right,
$140,000
but
worth
the
of
actual
taxpayers'
program,
money.
before all the changes we've implemented, which is why we were trying to streamline and do a few other things that I think we're going to present in the new year.
Well, we've implemented a new fare structure, a new way of monitoring the fares.
We really only have 100 people that use it?
I probably bet it's less than that.
Rumor has it that's how many there are. They keep track of numbers that we only get the numbers of rides and the head count of people on there. We don't get the who they are.
But there's 100 unique users for 140,000. So we're paying $1,400 per person.
It might many times be less than 100.
We've already privatized the handicap bus service. I didn't know we were going to get into all of this.
Well, that's part of the budget. What do you have in the budget
Well,
for
see-
senior transportation?
It's in community services. I think it's total, it's, I think, $58,000 in there.
You said you didn't think we were going to talk about budget. I thought it was on the agenda. If you don't want me to talk about it, I won't.
I believe we were, since
Okay.
that's an enterprise fund, we were going to talk about that budget in the new year.
Yeah, Chuck,
we
that
were just
really, senior
concentrating-
transportation is not part of the general fund. It's a separate fund under senior transportation.
But the general fund is subsidizing it, right?
So
you
in
have
that
an entry in the general
right,
fund.
in that community service line item,
Help me out here. Let's.
let me get
What you
mine off
handed
the
out
chair.
last week or 2 weeks ago, it's in there?
Cheat sheet.
Cheat sheet, yeah. That's not a good name, cheat. We just went through
In the
that.
actual budget. Sorry, I got this under the paper.
This is right here? Yeah, this one, right? Yeah, because I can't. No.
Okay. On the very last page of the budget, page 10 of 10, you have the budget, Chuck, or?
Okay, what is the number you have in then for?
58,500.
58,500 is a
Right.
subsidy for the,
Part of it is the subsidy, and the other part of it is newsletters and things like that. I could get you the exact, I think the senior trans portion is 40,000. I'd have to dig through my papers and find it.
But we're already taking a $15,000 cut for next year.
Right. Based on the reorganization that we did.
And we're down 20,000 from 2016.
Right.
on the senior line or on that total line? The total line, right?
On the total line.
Well, a lot of it
But
was
most of it
newsletter.
is senior
Newsletter was a big
transportation.
reduction, right? I think. Because we cheapened up the newsletter.
Original has the exact breakdown.
Okay, water and sewers, and we're going to do in next year also, or?
Yes.
So we're not going to talk about that tonight, okay. All right, I guess we can wait on some of these other things.
All set? Gary, do you have something?
No, I was looking at, Cindy had that detail on that 955. It's all right, but
Must have left it on the table.
might be worth looking at. If it's
I'm sorry, looking at what?
The individual line item for what's in that. If you see
Yeah,
we've already
I just don't have the detail sheet with me. I just have the summary.
Yeah, so we've
But I
already
could do
taken a
that.
cut off of newsletters and things like that, if the.
I know some of it is the actual senior transportation amount, but I just don't have that with me.
All right, so let's, it's something we'll have to get into in the
I'll
future.
put a note on and,
Cindy, is that percentage a negotiated thing that, between us and the city, or is it depending upon?
There's
just by use?
there's an agreement that we operate under with the city.
But it's by use, huh?
Yeah, it is. It's a combination of,
I don't know.
well, it's basically on ridership. They keep track of the residents that use it, the city versus the township. And at the end of the month, we figure out a percentage, and we allocate the expenditures based on that percentage.
Okay.
And at the end of the year, we kind of do a little true-up.
I think that 100 people number includes the city and the township together.
It is.
So it's even fewer when you just count the township.
Yeah.
And of the city, the majority is from Tonquist Manor,
Tonquist Manor, yeah.
which is run by the Plymouth Housing Commission. I'll just leave it at that. So,
I like the Uber idea. It's cheaper.
are we all set? All set? Okay. All right, let's move on to supervisor and trustee comments. Obviously, we had an election last week, and I want to thank the voters of Plymouth Township for your confidence and support and trust in approving the public safety millage. It passed by a percentage of 57 to 43, which I think was a tremendous vote of confidence and support. For those who voted for the millage, thank you very much. We appreciate it. For those who did not, we are committed to earning your trust and showing that your tax dollars are being spent wisely and in the way that we promised that they would. And that was part of our discussion here tonight. So again, thank you very much for doing your homework and coming out so solidly in response to the millage request. We do appreciate it. And we do know that it's a major sacrifice, but we want to make sure that that your dollars are well spent. I am also, just for the board's benefit, I'm looking at possibly a special meeting on December 18th. It would be a Tuesday night again. We have two meetings scheduled for December. We have December 11th, which is a regular meeting, but the next one would be deep into the Christmas season. And, you know, we do have some decisions to make, possibly involving the golf course, and we've got just a lot of other sort of year-end contracts and renewals and some other things that we have to do in other departments.
Only if you bring me a birthday cake.
Is that your birthday?
Happy 40th. How about if Santa Claus comes for your birthday?
So please think about that. I know it's inconvenient given the holiday schedules, but yeah, I think it would make our life a lot easier. Otherwise, I think the December 11th meeting, Jack, if you think this is long, you ain't seen nothing yet, because we have a lot of things on that agenda. It would also involve a closed session with the labor attorney, assuming that he's available. I think he will be, so that would also be helpful. That's all I have. Bob, birthday bye? Gary?
I'd like to also thank the three gentlemen sitting over there that, with their teams, did an outstanding job in getting the word out on the public safety millage. Not just the word, but the real, honest facts. And thank you, gentlemen. You did a great job, and so did your team. Thank you.
Again, just wanted to thank all of the employees, the part-time employees, the temporary employees, the inspection, election inspectors, for all their hard work in the election. And Paula Jefferson, just stand up for a second. She's our new hire here who helps out in the clerk's department, and she comes to us from Superior Township, and she was the deputy clerk there.
Thank you. Mark?
I'm all set. Thank you.
Jack?
Well, I'm hoping we'll go to 10:30, so I'm going to participate in helping us achieve that goal.
Okay, good. Go for it.
We made 10, so why not go for 10:30? But in all seriousness, I want to add my commendations and thanks to the voters, staff here, new staff, and staff who've been here for a while, poll workers, who probably, when you look at the number of hours put in, divided into the pay, they probably made, I don't know, $7 an hour or something. So they obviously do it out of a real sense of public spiritedness. And the other thing that's important to me is that the voters would not have done this if they didn't have confidence, not just in the leadership, but in the rank and file of our public safety departments. So I think the way that those officers on patrol and those guys in the EMT unit and fire apparatus and the day-to-day interaction with voters obviously played a role. And so it's the professionalism, it's the willingness to go the extra mile that has, I think, prompted a lot of people to think it's worth investing out of my own pocket in public safety. So I commend you all. And we've had some recent examples of that, both within the township and outside, including someone, I think it was a off-duty police officer who helped someone on I-94 west of here in a very difficult situation. So those are the kind of people that we've got serving us, and I think it's just matches the quality of the people we have with the quality of the public safety employees. So I'm honored to be part of that and delighted to be here this Tuesday night as opposed to last Tuesday night when it was it was a blur. It was a blur. Yeah. Golly, that was only 2 minutes. I yield the balance of my time to Mr. Kermey.
All right.
Mr. Kermey.
Sorry, I want to keep working, so I have some questions. Jerry, whatever happened to the 2016 ballot FOIA that was going to cost $38,000? Is it in the budget?
Not as yet. I was hoping that they don't respond, but we're still waiting for their response to the amount of money that I said it would cost, and also for the second one. So one was $37,000, and the other one was $18,000, and we have not heard back from them. But we're going to have to maintain that material for a longer period of time than we would have by virtue of what the Secretary of State said and the Attorney General said.
So no work has started yet?
Only just some preliminary testing of some equipment that we would need to facilitate that. We had to see what it would cost and if we could have the type of material to do the project.
Okay. When the labor attorney comes, will you ask him if he can put stuff on a spreadsheet or something versus in the past where we had just talking and hand waving, not from him in the past? It was too difficult to follow 4 different negotiations and what was on the table and what the unions offered, if they've had, or what we've offered, or maybe now it's so simple it'll be a status, but some kind of handout document that's reasonable. Don't want him to spend 25 hours, but it will be a good tool for him and his staff too, if he can use it for his work and to educate us.
Yeah, and that's the way I usually operate, and in fact, some of those documents I'll be drafting myself. So,
you had indicated that we are considering selling some more DPW land. I request that if we do that we have an outside third party, at least some evaluation to determine the value. I know when we did the cell tower, we didn't do that. That was the reason I didn't want to sell at that time, but
the property has been appraised already, so we can share that with you.
But we're chopping it up, though, right? Are we chopping it up?
It's chopped up, but there's negotiation strategy involved, which I don't want to.
Okay, you don't want to disclose, but
you and I can talk about
I just want to make sure that we're getting a fair price, that's all.
We are.
This is for Mark, the $1.1 million from the city of Plymouth. And we were talking about putting money in trust funds for MERS here today. Where is that money, and what are you going to do with it now? 1.1 from the city for the shared.
It's currently sitting in the general fund. When we meet for final, Cindy's going to be presenting budget amendments for 2018, and part of those budget amendments for 2018 will be to transfer that 1.1 million into MERS.
Okay, from another fund.
It's currently sitting in the general fund right now.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, now let's get back to the OPEB, the way they manage that. It almost, the way you described it, it's like a self-directed 401k. How do we, is there any way we can benefit from MERS buying opportunity? Because they invest in things that are non-traditional, like pension funds take an interest in a hotel or things like that. are we excluded from that type of general MERS investment in the OPEB trust fund, the way we've set it up? Or, because it almost looks like we're a retail investor.
The investment options are on that resolution, that resolution. There was only like 8
and that's all you get.
portfolios. Those are the only options that you get. Yeah. Yeah. I mean,
Obviously, the riskier ones are those kinds of investments, right? That's farther down. As Mark said, we're going to stay close to the conservative piece.
But MERS doesn't let you do anything else if it's an OPEB trust.
not with an OPEB trust.
This
Those are the
isn't, this isn't like the Detroit, pension, firefighters'
Yeah.
pension
Okay,
plan
that's-
where they're buying casinos and
Yeah, those are the
landfills
only,
and stuff.
those are the only options. And my recommendation would be that we keep it as conservative as possible. The goal would be to preserve the principal. Number one, we don't want to lose the principal that we're putting in there. And number two, to achieve a return that's greater than what we could do at a local bank at like 2%.
Well, you really want a return that keeps up with the cost of the insurance you're paying. If you could do that, but that's a lot.
Yeah.
It might be 10, some of those are 10% a year they go up, the premiums.
Yeah.
So that, you'd have to take a lot of risk to get 10%.
Yeah, I mean, clearly you don't want to take risk. Principal preservation would be my number one goal. And just FYI, I mean, we had this discussion at the previous meeting. An OPEB trust is much simpler to manage than a pension trust. We put for argument's sake, we take that 1 million, 2 million, and we put it into the OPEB trust. And then a week later, we say, I want my 1.2 million back. I just fill out a document and they send me the 1.2 million back. So that's how simple it is to manage that OPEB trust. Obviously, I've already stated my goal would be to put that money aside for the next 5 years because we're going to need it in future years.
All right, two more last questions. Number one, do we have the board review, if we have any new people? I know we have at least one. Are they scheduled for training in time to be adapted for the March board review?
Yeah, the new member who we appointed a few weeks ago is going to undergo that training. I'm looking at Sue. She's working with Tracy Haley and the people from WCA on that. The others will be reappointed, and you'll be seeing those requests before your meeting on, or at your meeting on December 11th or possibly the 18th.
The last one is a revenue enhancing, Mark. I think we need to raise our, going door to door, there's an awful lot of dogs in this town. We need to raise the dog license that's been $5 for 40 years. And we need to sell them through veterinarians. We need to look at the Oakland County model. They are doing much more than we are in dog licensing. And let's see if the veterinarians want to sell them. And dogs are, looks like, my judgment is half of the households have a dog. And you only sell like 1,500 dog licenses or less a year?
No, we sell like 800 dog licenses.
Okay, it's
a year.
even
We
worse
make
than the compliance is really low.
Yeah, we make about $4,000 a year in dog licenses.
Obviously, they're all coming to the dog park, the new dog park. We'll really charge them.
Well, they have to have vaccination to go to the dog park, usually.
The people or the dogs?
But why are we selling? I think this is a good question. Why are we selling dog licenses?
The primary reason for dog licenses is so if there's a stray, they have a license and they can call our dispatch center and they can put them in touch with the proper owner.
And for vaccination. Well, the real reason was the rabies epidemic that used to rage in Michigan.
Yeah.
And so it was to control that.
You have to have a rabies shot in order to get a license.
And what's the enforcement if you don't have a license?
We just shoot the dog.
Well, that's rather, I believe that's uncalled for.
He didn't mean that.
Poor dog.
Didn't mean it.
Do you remember bike licenses for your bicycle?
Yeah.
He never had them here. That was only places like Dearborn that had lots
Dearborn.
of theft.
We had bike licenses.
If we sold walking licenses, couldn't we use that money for sidewalk extensions?
There you go.
Oh, you just brought up another one. Sidewalk, Kurt, whenever you're ready. In fact, Dave, when can we have a timeline, a tentative timeline with the open issues so that we can get moving on it?
There you go.
Probably next week.
Great. If you want me to help, I'll be there.
You mean you would email it to the board?
We can email what we've been working on, yes. I'll go over it with Kurt, and then we can get it out in an email.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you over someone else was talking up here.
No, I don't know why I put my phone in my...
No, I said I can go over it with Kurt next week, and we can get it out in an email, what we've been working on with what we've been working towards.
That'd be great.
Okay, all set? Wonderful. Okay, it's public comment time. Again, 3 minutes. I do have you on a timer here.
I hope we have more than one comment or two.
Jack's trying to hit that 10:30 level, so.
You won't make it.
Okay. My name is Valerie Bartlett, and this is to be addressed to the board regarding these water bills. Actually, my water bill was read on 10/4, and I got the bill on the first week of November, and it's due within 3 weeks. Is there any way when the water bills are read that they can get them out immediately to give them the people more time to pay the bill? I mean, why, I don't understand why it takes a month to get this bill.
When did you move to Plymouth Township?
No, I've been here 21 years.
Okay, you know it's been the same way for that full 21 years.
Well, I realize that. I wrote a letter to the prior treasurer to get it changed, and nothing was ever done. So that's why I'm here tonight, addressing my issue.
Okay.
We're actually looking at that, and I wish I had an answer for you today. It's not as a simple a process as you might think. There's lots of, but that's something we want to address.
Okay.
Because I've had the same issue with utility companies like DTE. I get a bill and I look at it and it's due in 2 weeks.
Correct. I mean, if you're on a fixed income, I mean, it's hard to come up with $250. I mean.
Yeah.
Does your bill seem large? Is there?
No, but I'm saying, I mean, if you're on a fixed income, if you're a senior citizen and you got to come up with it in 2 weeks, I mean, it's just, you know, just give more time to pay. Either that or, waive the late charge.
Thank you.
Okay. Anyone else? Okay. Thank you very much. Need a motion to adjourn?
Mr. Supervisor, I move we adjourn at 10:28.
Motion's made by Trustee Heitman. Is there a second? Second by Clerk Vorva.
I was going to third it, but
No? All right. We are adjourned.
Aye.
Thank you.
I vote yes.
Aye.
I vote yes.